It's Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, which of course means that there's about a week and a day till Thanksgiving. And of course, a lot of things are going on in the world. So I'll be telling you about those and getting some reaction, hopefully, from some of our panelists if they join us and all along those lines. But U.S. envoy will head to Israel, citing progress in the Lebanon ceasefire talks. So that is something going on in that particular conflict. And Jimmy Lai, Hong Kong media mogul, takes the stand in a national security trial. He rose to riches in Hong Kong. Now he's a symbol of China's crackdown. And tycoon Jimmy Lai denies asking the U.S. to act against Hong Kong and China in a landmark trial. So this is a landmark trial going on in Asia and all along those lines. Russian spy chief says NATO aid for Ukraine missile strikes will be punished. So for Russia, nuclear weapons are the ultimate bargaining chip, and Putin just approved a new nuclear doctrine for Russia. And definitely, the Ukraine foreign minister says the United States cannot afford to look weak. So that's something going on in that particular conflict. And a woman linked to 14 cyanide murders is convicted and sentenced to death in Thailand. So, cyanide killer gets the death sentence in that particular case, which was a high profile cyanide murder case. So, definitely a lot's going on in the world and around the world. Severing of Baltic Sea cables was sabotaged, according to what Germany is saying. So, a Chinese ship was near both subsea internet cables that were mysteriously cut, according to reports that are out now. And U.S. allies accuse Russia of escalating hybrid activities against NATO and the EU nations after data cables were severed. And residents in Haiti's capital stand with police in a battle to uh, repel the gang attack. So more than 2 dozen gang members were killed after an attempted attack in Haiti. So Haiti, according to the New York Times, is saying it's not back to where we started. It's worse. And Doctors Without Borders has halted its operation in Haiti's capital amid threats from the police. And in Delhi, over there in India, Delhi pollution, living in an Indian capital is like watching a dystopian film again and again, according to some people in that particular area. And what is cloud seeding? All about artificial rain used when AQI is high. So it definitely looks like there might be some cloud seeding going on to try to get some of the smog cleared out and all along those lines. But toxic smog persists over India's north, but the school has reopened, or schools have reopened in Pakistan. And in Brazil, Xi Jinping cultivates a friend as he braces for Trump. So China's Xi visits Brasilia to cap his tour, flexing his diplomatic clout. So Brazil courts China as its Musk feud erupts again. So Lula's embrace of Xi sets up a clash over Trump's China policy. And a surge in mass attacks has killed dozens in China in the recent months. So China's crackdown belie fear within the regime. A mass killing tests China's crime narrative. So after a deadly car rampage, Chinese officials tried to erase any hint of it at all. And Jeremiah Clarkson lashes classic BBC as old grievances surface at UK. So Clarkson clashes with BBC over the inheritance tax comment, mistrust, anger, and suspicion of Bill Gates. The view from the UK farmers' protest. So UK farmers are protesting in London over the inheritance tax change. So, like I said, lots going on, including some news out of North Korea. North Korea sent a mystery man to lead its troops fighting Ukraine. So North Korea sent more artillery systems in new arms shipment to Russia, South Korea says, and it looks like the North Korean soldiers are fighting in Russian elite units. So North Korea may end up sending Putin 100,000 troops for a war. Is something that is being talked about and all along those lines. So definitely we'll see how this all plays. One Direction stars gather for the funeral of ex-bandmate Liam Payne. Liam Payne, friends, family, and fans gather for an emotional memorial service near London, and definitely that's something that was some sad news that took place as well. And 1,000 days yesterday since Russia invaded Ukraine. So that would now be 1,001 days, I believe, and everything, but definitely Ukrainians in Maidan Square commemorate the fallen and missing soldiers and all along those lines. And a U.S. admiral has said that sending Israel and Ukraine weapons like Patriot missiles is eating into weapons stockpile. So that's something that is being said by one of the admirals and everything like that. The Indo-Pacific commander made that comment. So the top U.S. admiral is sounding alarm on the weapons stockpile. Let me get to some of the news in the United States, and then I'll bring in folks that are here with me to see what they've got to say about these news stories and all along those lines. It looks like a bomb cyclone became one of the Northeast Pacific's strongest on record as it hammers the West Coast. So, bomb cyclone kills one and knocks out power to over 500,000 homes across the Northeast Pacific. And at least one person has died, and like I said, over 500,000 remain without power. So they're saying that it could still bring more heavy rain and winds to California and that region of the Pacific Northwest as well. So definitely a lot's going on in that way. And the U.S. has shut the Kyiv embassy due to potential significant air attack. So U.S. embassy in Kyiv warns of significant air attack and is closed in that area. And an ethics committee is meeting amid mounting Gates pressure. So Matt Gates sent over $10,000 in Venmo payments to two women who testified in the House probe. Marjorie Taylor Greene said the GOP covered up sexual harassment and assault claims. So looks like Matt Gates' accusers don't want to testify in public, according to their lawyer and everything like that. And it looks like Trump has named Linda McMahon as his pick for education secretary. So it looks like Trump's education pick once correctly claimed to have had an education degree. So this is the former WWE CEO. So she will be serving as the education secretary and all along those lines. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And the fight for Alex Jones' InfoWars companies heats up as Jones sues to hold on. So Alex Jones sues the Onion and Sandy Hook families over the InfoWars deals. So the Onion won the auction several days ago to take control of Alex Jones' InfoWars, but it looks like he's not going quietly. He's going to try to fight them any way that he can. And a Republican moves to bar trans colleague from the women's bathrooms. So Speaker Johnson makes clarification after statement regarding transgender House member. So House Republicans target and McBride with the Capitol bathroom bill, according to the New York Times. So it looks like the first trans Congress member from Delaware is hit with a proposed bathroom ban. And Los Angeles has passed a sanctuary city ordinance in the wake of Trump election victory. So LA enacts sanctuary city ordinance to prepare for potential mass deportation. So it looks like the LAUSD confirmed sanctuary district status, says it won't cooperate with Trump immigration crackdown. And I know that at one point, I think Durham, North Carolina was a sanctuary city as well. I'm not sure if they still are considered one or not. I'll have to look into that. But Trump has confirmed plans to use the military to assist in mass deportation. Trump says he used the military for mass deportation and all along those lines. And a former prosecutor argues against parole for Susan Smith, who was convicted in 1994 of the murder of her children, who she pushed into by pushing her car into a lake. And 30 years later, it looks like she's up for parole. Susan Smith prosecutors are saying that. See if I can get to that. Saying that she was meant to serve life in prison as a killer. Mom gets parole hearing. So it looks like she will face the parole board 30 years after she was convicted of drowning her children. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And Howard Lutnick could be trying to shake up global trade. He is the Trump's pick for Commerce Secretary. So that's who's got the Commerce Secretary job as well. So a lot of jobs going in that space and all along those lines. So we've got new jobs, including Dr. Oz, who I think got a cabinet pick as well. As a matter of fact, he'll be overseeing Medicare and Medicaid. So Dr. Oz tapped by Trump to oversee Medicare and Medicaid for millions. So lots of interesting jobs that are still out there, and we got some more that have got to be picked as well, and all in that space. And it looks like yesterday, anti-Israeli protesters were arrested in a Senate office building, and Bernie Sanders is calling for no more arms sales to Netanyahu. So it looks like there are fresh protests in the White House on Biden's Israeli policy and all along those lines. And the Texas Education Board is supporting Bible-based lessons in elementary school. So the Texas Board has advanced plans to allow Bible material in elementary school lessons. So, and some Texas parents and historians saying that a new state curriculum glosses over slavery and racism. So we'll definitely be having some conversations around a lot of these things, including the Manhattan DA suggests freezing the Trump hush money case while he is president. So the prosecutor is open to delaying Trump hush money sentencing and all along those lines. And if you want to leave the U.S., they're saying a village in Italy is selling homes for $1 to Americans who want to escape. So Italian Villages is offering $1 homes to Americans looking to move abroad after the Trump election. Imagine you got to figure out a way to get there and everything, but definitely they are offering a chance to live in Italy. But I've got Rick Rosner with me. I'm going to see if he's going to be going in that.
I want to do that, but it's not $1. It's probably charging €1, which would be like $1.07. So don't forget the extra 7 cents.
Yep. So you're gonna go. You and your wife gonna go to Italy, and what are you?
Italy is great. Italy is cheap. They have some problems with their government too, but it's at least if you've got problems with your government, you can have problems while you're sipping coffee in the middle of Florence or Venice. Which Venice, you can buy a grandma type apartment, an old musty apartment, for about the same price you could buy an apartment in Van Nuys. Venice is nicer than Van Nuys.
It sounds like it. Well, we've got some interesting picks, and I know Sasha will have a better idea than I will, but it looks like Howard Lutnick is going to be tapped to be the Commerce Secretary, and it looks like Dr. Oz might be running Medicare and some of the other medical kind of things. And last but not least, it looks like Linda McMahon, who I know had success with the WWE, will be running the education department. So what is our thoughts around some of these picks that have now been put out there? We've got Dr. Oz and Linda McMahon that are having jobs as well. We've got Jacoby with us also. So what's your take on some of these picks? Because we got some interesting picks, including somebody that was connected to the WWE.
Well, you can take approach that all are this like a trial balloons, and until January 21st, it's all immaterial and doesn't make any sense. And I'm not sure even if you should react to this one way or another. So I'll just take approach, wait and see who will be nominated, who will be not, and if nominated, whether it will go through due process and being approved by Senate and House. I wouldn't pay much attention to this right now.
Hey, what's your take on that, Jacoby? And I did hear where there might even be some splinter within the Republican Party, because I guess Marjorie Taylor Greene is taking issue with Matt Gaetz and is actually doing some inquiry into Matt Gaetz because of those sexual allegations and everything. But what's your take on the picks that you're seeing so far?
It's a clown show. It's a true clown show. And I don't know. They are all going to be Trump. They're all Trump loyalists. None of them really have any experience in the positions they're being put in. They're just being put in positions to do whatever Trump says, regardless if they're trial balloons or not. All of them are. I mean, the guy that he threw for, what was it, Fed chair or whatever? No, I forgot. He threw one of the co-authors of Project 2025 in there. So, the idea that he had nothing to do with Project 2025, now he has the co-author of Project 2025 in there. It's a clown show. And the next 4 years it's going to be pretty rough. And I think one of the things that's going around on Twitter or TikTok, the FAA, was it FAAFO, the F around and find out, is what the idea or the motto that a lot of people are saying that yes, the Democrats should do, because this is just going to be a complete mess.
So Linda McMahon adds to Trump's rape cabinet. She's another rape-adjacent nominee in that she's married to Vince McMahon, who's had to settle, for sexual assault and harassment, and that makes the fifth either credibly accused sexual assaulter or partner or had an affair with a sexual assaulter.
But remember, Rick, he said he was going to be the best for women. He was going to be the greatest for women. And all he's putting up is sexual assault people.
No. Oh, I looked up that city in Italy. It's on the island of Sardinia, which is, I don't know, about 150, 200 miles off the coast of Rome. Beautiful little town called Ololai. But you're on an island, so I don't know.
Well, Sardinia, the cool part about Sardinia is that isn't that the one that has based on their diet, they have some of the longest living individuals? I think it's Sardinia. I cannot remember.
I'll look that up.
Yeah, while you're looking it up, I'm going to bring in Shaquille, see what he's got to say, because he travels the world about folks moving for $1. I guess it's $1.07 since it's in the euro to Italy, because that particular town is saying that they will offer Americans $1 if they want to move to Italy and everything like that. So I guess they'll give you a house for literally $1. I don't know any houses.
Yeah, you're going to have to fix. You're going to have to put on new doors and probably install plumbing. It's going to cost you a couple $100,000 to get it livable, but still. And Chitovi's right. It's one of the world's blue zones. People eat peasant food, walk a lot, and regularly live to 100. So get a cheap house and also like another 15 years added to your life.
So what do you think, Shaquille, about this notion of folks from America moving to Italy because they're offering cheap housing?
I'm just enjoying it. I'm just going to sit back here and enjoy the ridiculous commentary coming from some of our panelists here. So Italy is not the only country to offer $1 for their houses. They're not offering it just to Americans. They didn't come out since the election and say, hey, we're going to offer $1 homes.
Wait, they have a website saying, hey, Americans, why you don't like what's happening in America, move here. They just built a website.
Well, they're not offering it only to Americans. They've been offering that scheme for at least the last 10 years that I'm aware of. But I'm going to just inform my liberal friends in America, you're not going to like Italy too much, because all of the things, Rick, that you just talked about that are so lovely, you can get up and have a cheap coffee and a cheap meal and have reasonably affordable housing at a low cost of living. That's what you just voted against in America. That's what you're all whinging about, is the plan for America. And Meloni is not on the left. She's on the right. And so you can go back and watch your liberal media and just see how terribly they depict her, because she's on the right. So I don't think Italy is for you. I think you guys should be looking for places that are more in line with your values, like Venezuela or Cuba or, China or North Korea or something like that.
I just said Italy has its own problematic politics, but at least you can, suffer through their problematic politics while you're sitting next to the Duomo having
Do you guys not have coffee there, sitting there in Venice Beach, surrounded by the beautiful homeless people that you guys have advocated for and the high crime rates that you guys have advocated for? Sit there and have a nice coffee. What's the problem?
I'd rather bitch about politics while being in Florence or Venice.
I was going to say that Shaq is right. We did vote against all these high things, but others voted for it. The only individual that actually had a plan for anything, people voted against. That's what Shaq championed, is that Trump, he's going to be okay. He never had a plan. The only individual that did, people voted for, but it ended up Trump winning. So just to point out, also with with other things. So with Project 2025, who Shaq, you said he had nothing to do with. That dude is now on the
Oh
panel.
no!
So I'm just saying all these things, and the best part about it is that the laughing and joking from an individual who it's never going to affect is why we have a problem.
Okay, so just a couple of things. Firstly, you've got Rachel Levine. You guys, if you're going to start complaining about Donald Trump being a troll by some of his nominations, like McMahon being the education person, all right, have a look at some of the people that you put up. And secondly, yes, Jatofi, you're absolutely correct.
Yes.
It's never going to affect me. And you know why it's not going to affect me? It's not because I have massive financial resources, more than most people in the world, right? It's not because of that. It's because I left Australia because Australia had similarly lost its mind. And I didn't go to the United Kingdom because the United Kingdom had similarly lost its mind. And I went to countries where I could be successful. And guess what happened? I became successful. Hence the reason why I don't need to put up with the stupid bullshit that comes out of the politicians that you people vote for. So if Jatovi, yourself, and Rick Rosner would like to join the sensible side and move to other countries where you actually have freedom and sensibility, I'm happy to help you out. But if you want to sit there until 2026. You'll be able to vote in your nonsense in the midterms. Then you can vote in somebody else more nonsensical at the next election in 2028. And you can go back to having a destroyed country and bad economic future like you want it. But in the meantime, if you want something a bit happier, come on over to the more enlightened side, my friend.
You brought up Rachel Levine, who is a trans doctor who, first of all, she wasn't appointed Surgeon General. She was appointed Deputy Surgeon General, and she's already been Surgeon General of the state of Pennsylvania, and had something for other.
Rick, come on now, Rick. Listen, Democrats have been trolling us for years, right? Left-wing parties, the Labor Party up there in Canada, the Labor Party in Australia and the UK have been trolling us for years by putting ridiculous pics up with ridiculous policies. Okay, Canada, there's a place in Canada where they passed a rule that says that if you as much as criticize a drag show, right, and you're within, like, I can't remember exactly what it is, 500 meters or whatever it is, then you can be arrested for it, right? No. So you guys want to troll us. Now you're getting trolled back, right? Suck it up, princesses, because that's what you've done to us.
Like, I actually knew Rachel before she transitioned. She's a doctor. She's been practicing for some kind of shrink for 30 years.
So what? Real quick, what about your nuclear guy who's like this transgender that goes and steals luggage from the airport? Rachel Levine was not put there because of Rachel Levine's great credentials in medicine. Rachel Levine was put there specifically to prove a point, to hit a quota, and to upset the Conservatives. And now the Conservatives are in power. Your ideas have been repudiated by the majority of America, and they're reacting and doing the same thing back to you. And all you can do is say, "Oh, well, we just want to leave the country." And the last thing I'll say, before you lose your mind, Jatovi, I'll give you a chance to respond. The last thing I'll say is, I find it so fascinating for the liberals of America to be like, "Oh, you're so selfish because you wanted cheaper groceries and a lower cost of living, etc., etc." This coming from the group of people that said that the wealthy should pay more taxes in order for that money to be redistributed to the people at the bottom. So which is it, guys? Did you care about cost of living, or was it just political? I think it was just political.
Let's point out a few things. Rick just pointed out a fact to you that the individual that you complained about, oh my gosh, she's transgender, and the only thing she's qualified. Matt Gaetz, Shaq, you're laughing this off, and you're talking about trolling. This is what you're doing. Shaq, Matt Gaetz is not qualified. Show me a qualification that he has to be in the position that he's getting nominated for. Dr. Oz is not qualified.
Show me anything that he's done to show me that he's qualified. RFK Jr. is not qualified. You know that as well as I do, and you're just sitting here laughing off talking about his trolling. Every individual that you can name that has been put up by Joe Biden, that was put up by Obama, that was put up by Bush, that was put up by others before, were actually qualified. But now you're laughing at all.
Oh, really? 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 Okay. So firstly,
again, wait,
firstly,
Shaq. Let me finish. None of these individuals have any qualifications for the positions they're placed in. And before you answer, give me their qualifications. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of this. This is why we're here. So if you cannot tell me they're qualified and what their qualifications are, then you have nothing to offer to the conversation, but you're trolling and you're laughing. So you can't advance this conversation.
So, all right. So,
so don't let me respond. That's good, Rick. Okay, good. Yeah, okay, that's excellent.
We were reacting to a news story. Italy just re-upped their offer of €1 houses, and if you're an American, you can't just move to another country, for one thing. And our kids lived in England since 2019, and we've been looking for ways to spend more time in England for years. So it's not because Trump got elected but we've been trying to plan something like this and dealing with the logistics for years. And so if you could buy a $1 house, then you can only leave America for 6 months at a time. Then you have to come back because of the various laws. But if you could buy a house in Italy for like €10,000, that makes it possible to have a second home someplace, even though it's a piece of crap house that needs plumbing.
Just really
quick. So let me come back on a couple of things. So Jatovi's put the requirement that I'm only allowed to respond if I can give the qualifications. But Jatovi, you obviously haven't heard my comments about Matt Gaetz, if we're going to use him for an example. I don't think that Matt Gaetz has got the qualifications or exposed. He might have technical qualifications. I don't think he's got the experience. I don't think that he's the right person for the job as AG, and I think he's a very poor pick. I've said that, but as usual, when I criticise Republicans, when I criticise the right, nobody pays any attention to that. It's only if I say something about the left. But if I say, well, hey, Pete Buttigieg didn't have any real experience in running the transport department, you guys will jump down my throat. But as soon as I say that Donald Trump's picked for HUD, okay, great guy, he's a doctor, neurosurgeon, fantastic guy, very smart guy, but he didn't have the qualifications to be in charge of HUD, you guys all sit there like you did 4 years ago. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, because only my criticism of Republicans and centre-right parties is something that you guys will agree with me on. Any criticism of the left, not acceptable. And I am not going to sit here and say to you that those people are qualified. In fact, my opening statement was he's probably just being a bit of a troll and suck it up. I didn't sit there and justify his picks being based on his their qualifications. Now, if you want to ask me about Mike Huckabee or other people like them, perhaps then I would actually respond with qualifications. And as for your comments, Rick, firstly, if you're an American, the world's your oyster, the same as it is if you're Australian or British or Canadian, etc. If you want to go and live somewhere in Europe, it's pretty easy to do, for the same reason why it would be very, very easy for me if I wanted to come and live in the United States to be able to do so. If you want to be able to buy a home for $1,000 or $1 or $10,000, you can do that right there in the United States. And in fact, the US, similarly to Europe, advertises investment properties for foreign investors if they'd like to come in and buy properties in the middle of bloody nowhere and do them up. They also offer, hang on, just let me finish. The United States also offers very cheap and tax-effective investment options for foreign investors if they want to come in and bring jobs. Okay, there is no real difference, and I've said to you before, I've sent you an email, I've sent you a text message. If you want to contact me, I can help you get into the UK and Europe. That's not going to be a problem. But the point is that the idea, which is not necessarily what you're doing, I am very cognizant of the fact that you said you have progeny in the United Kingdom. But the idea that I'm hearing from a lot of people that, oh, well, things are terrible, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go move somewhere else. It's so completely ridiculous. Okay, you don't see all the conservatives in Canada say, "Oh well, Justin Trudeau got elected, and then he got re-elected, so we're going to all move." Right? You see some of them say they're going to move, and they don't. You see all those truckers that complained about their bank accounts being frozen, etc., and they kicked up a big song and a dance, and then what did they do? The situation blew over. They went back to their lives. Okay, left wing, right wing, it's all the same thing. Come on, get online, go on a podcast, have a whinge about government, but don't expect everyone to take you seriously
All right,
because it's clearly not.
So two things. You're right. You can buy a beautiful, like 5-bedroom, 3,000 square foot house in the Oklahoma Panhandle for like $100,000. And like my wife like comes home and complains about all the homeless we have in LA, and I'm like, well, do you want to move someplace, where like Oklahoma, Albuquerque? So that's thing one. Thing two is Terry McCain is asking Sasha,
Yes.
how about moving to Canada? And my wife and I have looked, at Canada. It gets us to, the Commonwealth at least, and we found that Canada's a tough move. Canada doesn't really want.
Canada's even easier to get into than the United States or most of Europe. What are you talking about?
What, to live there permanently?
Well, that's what we
Of course it is.
That's what we want to hear from
Canadians, what do you guys call them? Snowbirds? Because the weather is a lot more harsh in most of Canada. That's why the majority of Canadians live near the border, right? And you call them snowbirds, or the very wealthy and sometimes middle class Canadians that decide, especially in retirement, that they're going to come down and live in the United States for 6 months of the year because the winters are a little bit more hospitable than what they are in Canada. Well, the similar arrangement it exists for US people wanting to go to Canada. And in fact, if you look at Vancouver, an area that I know a little bit more, and if you look at Whistler, at all of those ski lodges and ski resorts and ski cabins and all that sort of stuff, what did you see when the Canadian economy did pretty badly 15 years ago? Was US investors went up there and snapped up all that property. What do you see with Americans who are 18, 19, 20, and just before they turn 21, when they want to go out and have a drink? What do? If they happen to live near the northern border, they cross into Canada and they go out and party and they rock up back down to the United States. So Canada's a very easy country for you guys to move to.
But if you want to do it, you got to do the 6 months in the U.S., 6 months out of the U.S.
You don't have to do that. If you want to naturalize, there's all sorts of options available to you. And let me tell you, Canada is a much easier country to get into because Canada wants immigration, because Canada is a sparsely populated place. They want immigration. Do you know what a business visa would cost in Prince Edward Island? About $100,000, about 70, 80,000 US dollars. Same thing for British Columbia. I can't comment on Toronto or Quebec. Sasha may be able to. It's pretty easy to get to Canada. And as I said, if you are lucky enough to carry a Western passport, you don't have a problem. Okay, and I know this is not what you are saying, Rick, but for those people that are sitting there going, oh no, I didn't get my way. Sometimes in life you don't get the things that you want, and this time round, somebody I don't like won the election. I better move somewhere else. Stop stressing. It's pretty easy to move, so stop whinging about it.
Okay.
Well, I have a question about what to suggest for people who want to leave the country for Canada. Okay, Terry, here is what I say. Canada is, in a way, much easier place to live than United States. The population is much lesser than in States. The government support is fairly decent. I mean, it's easy to have appointment with whoever you need to make it, and there are no lineups most of the time. Sometimes there are. About climate, okay, I live in Toronto. Toronto has very mild climates thanks to global warming effect. So I think in 2-3 years there will be no need to go to Florida or anywhere because, okay, for example, like now it's almost the end of November and plus 12 Celsius outside. I can wear maybe a jacket and I can go to get anywhere I want. There could be much colder days January, February, perhaps 2 months. Well, for that, you can take a trip to Aruba, for example, which I'm going to do in December. I would never go to Florida because Florida is a lousy place. So what's the point of getting to Florida? You'll spend approximately the same money. But in Florida, okay, you have to rent something. You need a car to go to buy groceries, and you have to bring the groceries, bring them up to your apartment. You have to prepare some kind of a dinner, and then you have to wash dishes. What kind of vacation is that? To me, it's nothing. I'd rather stay home because at home everything is comfortable and I know what it was and where it is and so on.
Well, Sasha, see, firstly, those people that live up in Newfoundland and Saskatchewan may prefer to live in during the winter to go to Florida, Texas, and California.
Yeah,
Probably California, or as Marcus pointed out, Durham, North Carolina, because hell, you don't want to have to prepare your own food, and you don't want to have to pay somebody a livable wage, right? As Democrats are always talking about. So what they really want to have is some of those undocumented aliens, right? Those second-class people that the loving Democrats want to take advantage of to get them to cook their food and clean their houses and, do their gardens and do all the rest of the stuff at under the market rates. That's what you would take advantage of, and that's what I think the centre left is all about. Those loving, hateful people that they are.
And it's isn't it the business owners and the center right that's actually taking advantage of those individuals, but you use those quotes because you want to sit here and act as if the others are. Just pointing out a fact, but
it's center right people like me that take advantage of low-paid immigrants, right? While we sit there and talk about all the reasons why you shouldn't have it. That's why a lot of center right small business owners. No, you'll let me finish. Thank you. No, you'll let me finish. Thank you very much. That's why centre-right small business owners are predominantly made up in Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, the Republic of Ireland, France, Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, Belgium. I can go on. The majority of centre-right small business owners, centre-right small business owners are immigrants or within 2 generations of the immigrants. They are the children or grandchildren of immigrants. So we are the people that are trying to take advantage of immigration while we sit there and talk about all of the hardships that immigration and unfair immigration rules cause. Is that your theory?
Okay, let me point out
Good work, bro.
Let me respond to you real quick. So when I'm talking about taking advantage, it is what you're doing. The individuals that want to actually give these individuals not only a livable wage, but also the healthcare and all this other stuff, it's not the center right. The individuals that actually want to make them business owners, give them actual visas to do stuff. It's not the center right.
Because you oppose them at the top end. What are you talking about?
I let you finish. Why can't you let me? So the actual realities of the situation is the group that's actually wanted to do any type of immigration was more so the center left than the center right. Right now, we have somebody in the actual office who actually wants to do mass deportations. That's what he campaigned on. That's not helping out anybody. That's actually jacking up food prices.
That's absolute nonsense. That's absolute nonsense, Jamie. When Republicans were in control.
Wait, Shaq. He campaigned on mass deportations. He's already said he's doing mass deportations. He's already said he's using the military he wants to use the military inside neighborhoods to go after and do mass deportations. All these things are reality. These are things that he said he's going to do. That's the right. That's not talking about, hey, well, this is theoretical. This is what he's saying he's doing, but you want to laugh it off again. I'm just pointing out the realities of the situation that we're going to have to deal with. If you can't handle that, I'm sorry, but that's what it is.
So when Republicans were in charge of California, they wanted to have better immigration rules that would allow immigrants to move to the United States and be recognized, and it was opposed by Democrats. Are you interrupting me after insisting that I don't interrupt you?
Yeah, you did. Who turned down the bill? Who was going to pass that?
When Donald Trump put through a pathway for Dreamers and DACA recipients to get citizenship on the condition that they would be barred for a period of time from sponsoring their family members in order to disincentivize new people from coming over in order to bring their families over. It was opposed by Democrats. Every time there has been any kind of negotiation or any type of compromise set by right-wing political parties in relation to immigration, it has been opposed by left-wing parties. And it's not just in the United States. When we have seen people in farms and when we have seen other types of jobs where they have struggled to get employees, such as the 457 visa and temporary permits into Australia, New Zealand has a similar structure, Canada has a similar structure that says you can come here temporarily and then leave, or if you come here temporarily and you can find work, you can stay. You just need to make an application. It has been the left-wing parties of these countries that have opposed it. So your comment that it's Donald Trump wanting to deport everybody, that is because you guys have not been about trying to just give visas and a pathway to citizenship. What you guys have done is you guys have sat there and said, we're just going to let people flow across the border. We're going to disincentivize entrepreneurs and people who are likely to contribute to our country, right? You've said that, and then you sit there and complain when somebody opposes it. And to our viewer that says that he's had enough of listening to me, I'll just remind that viewer, you can go and listen to Sasha's show, and I encourage you to do so. I work in finance. I know what I'm talking about in finance. And the idea that you don't want to listen to an opposing view, I'll just remind you that I have more fans, and Mark and Nick can confirm this, than every other person that comes onto the entire Pod TV network combined. So if what you're going to do is to try to silence me, okay, I was gone for a couple of weeks. Did the viewership go up? No, it didn't. So stop having a crack at me. Every time you've made a comment, I've responded to it. Give it up, champ.
Who are you talking about? Shaq, stop. Who are you talking about?
Our audience member that said he'd had enough of me, and that's why he doesn't want to watch anymore.
Shaq.
Here, I want to talk about Here, let me talk about Beaver for a second. So you talked about cheap places to move in the U.S. I looked up Beaver, Oklahoma, in the Panhandle, where you can buy. Here's a 3-bed, 2-bath house, 2,900 square feet, $180,000. That's like what, $65-$70 a square foot compared to LA, where houses are like $1,000 a square foot. So yeah, you move to Oklahoma, buy a nice house. If you're paranoid about politics, that leaves you $800,000 that you made selling your LA house that you can turn your house into a fort.
But Rick, what I'm saying to you guys is, if the premise for wanting to move, which again I fully acknowledge is not what you have said, but if the premise for leaving the United States is that you're not happy with politics, okay, first of all, you'd have to be not happy with politics at a state level, not a federal level, right, because of the separation between the states and the federal government. So it wouldn't make sense in that regard in the first place. But if that really was, if you were so incensed that you wanted to leave the US because you cannot possibly handle the idea that other people could have a different political view to you, why would you move to a country that is more right-wing than the country that you're leaving? Wouldn't you want to move to a more left-wing country than the country that you're leaving? If you're a liberal and you're in California, don't move to a place like Italy where they're encouraging people to come and they're telling you that they're going to tax you less, they're going to give you cheaper housing, right? You buy a place for $1, spend a few $100,000 to get the place up to scratch. You're going to be living in a rural place, okay? You're not living in the middle of a beautiful city for $1. That's not what's happening. You're going to be out in the middle of nowhere, so you're going to have a lower cost of living. You're going to have lower taxes. You're going to have more freedom. Those are all the things that you're saying you don't want. Those are all the things that you're unhappy that the federal government of the US is suggesting that they want to bring about. Italy is not really big up on LGBTQ rights. They're not sitting there being great advocates for transgender stuff. They're sitting there talking about family values. They're sitting there talking about making sure their school system improves. Those are all the values that liberals in the United States say that they oppose. So don't move to Italy. Go and move to a country that sits on the left of the United States or left of California, if that's the reason for wanting to leave.
That's not the reason. The reason my wife and I talk about it mostly is because there's a whole frickin' world out there, which you travel the world and you frickin' love it. There's a lot of really great places.
Absolutely, I love it. That's why I don't live in legacy countries. And the thing that I love the most is having the freedom to be able to live and work in other countries. This is the reason why I'm such an advocate for immigration. This is why I don't want to see people from poor countries being denied the opportunity to be able to move to wealthy countries in order to be able to improve their lives and lives of their families. This is why I am never going to be opposed to immigration into the United States, because the United States has the ability to admit more immigrants from poorer countries than any other country around, just purely because of its size and the opportunities it offers. Right? But what do you guys hear? Because I don't like the way that you're doing it, that must mean that I'm anti-immigration, I'm a right-winger, I'm some sort of madman.
The richest man on earth and maybe the most powerful guy in the U.S. right now, Elon Musk.
He's an immigrant.
Freaking from South Africa, which is a country that has a ton of problems.
So I've just
come off Joel Jamal's shows, right? Turning Point Australia. And you know something that I find fascinating? We get criticized. I get over a million views every time I'm on there, right? We get criticized for being too right-wing, too much toxic masculinity, and too anti-immigration. Those are some of the complaints that we get. Yet, the majority of the people that are watching us and the majority of people that are on the shows are immigrants. The majority of the people watching the shows, to a rate of 65% of viewers, are women. Okay? Yet we're promoting toxic masculinity. So we're the immigrants and children of immigrants, but yet we're against immigration. Is it possible that liberals are just wrong on some of these issues and need to have some self-reflection?
Actually, is it possible that you don't listen to what others are saying? That's
I've heard what you guys had to say.
So the thing is, when we're talking about immigration, for example, with Donald Trump talking about mass deportations and everything else, and you supporting the whole mass deportation thing, that is anti-immigrant. Everything that he stated in terms of American isolationism, that is anti-immigrant. Him demonizing brown individuals coming from these places is anti-immigrant. That is all the stuff that he's put out there, and that support that you're putting behind it, that sounds very anti-immigrant. Yet you're not listening to it because you don't want to understand that is what it sounds like. For example,
there's a difference between me not wanting to understand and me disagreeing.
Let me finish my point, please. So when we talk about immigration, we have to understand the ins and outs of immigration. For example, immigration, the biggest problem with immigration is overstaying of visas. That's where the biggest problem is. But yet we never talk about fixing the court systems to work on that immigration system. All we talk about is, hey, we're going to build a wall where? Not in Canada, where individuals come through as well, not all the way around the U.S. No, we only talk about on the southern border. That's where we talk about a wall. Who comes from the southern border? Most Latino individuals and other individuals of color come from that area, not from up north, even though they still do. We have Haiti coming across, Haitians and Cubans coming across Florida, but most focus on the border because, yes, that southern border because of that. You can laugh all you want to, Shaq, but this is why you look and sound anti-immigrant. This is why you look and sound the way that you do, but you don't want to hear that. So what I'm trying to point out to you, all these things in terms of the immigration policies that we look at, we're not talking about the immigration policies in a serious fashion when we're talking about mass deportations. And we're not talking about a serious way to handle immigration, which is necessary for our country to flourish, or the U.S. to flourish, or any country to flourish, because our greatest boom was back in the early days when we had more immigration than we did now. So when we look at these things and we're talking about mass deportation and talking about taking advantage of individuals, that is a problem that we have. have, and that's what we have in the office right now. And when you're yelling all this support and that, oh, the libs this and libs that, you're not even listening to what people are talking about.
You know, there's a difference between me not listening.
You let Rick go.
I'll let Rick go. I just want to. I'd like to finish my sentence so that Rick can go. There is a difference. You're not the host. You're not the host, Marcus.
Not either. I would love to hear from Rick, though.
Okay, but it's not up to you whether I can finish my sentence or not. It's up to Mark. Thank you very much. There is a difference. There is a. If you just be quiet, I would have already finished.
Okay.
There is a difference. There is a difference between me not wanting to listen and me disagreeing. Okay, I've listened to your arguments. I've been browbeaten by them, by you and some of the network founders for the last handful of years. I just don't agree with you. And if you don't agree with my reasons as to why I don't agree with you, that's perfectly fine and reasonable. But don't sit there and try and tell me that I'm not listening. I'm listening. I don't agree with you. There's a difference.
You don't agree with the judges? You don't agree with
U.S. immigration policy has been schizophrenic for the past century. From 1942 through 64, we had the Bracero program, which is we'll give work visas to people from Mexico to come up and be agricultural workers, largely. Right in the middle of that, we freaked out, and Eisenhower had Operation, sorry for the term, Wetback. That was its official name in 1954, deporting people who came over here to work. So we're not going to get comprehensive immigration reform for the same reason we didn't get it mostly under Biden, because the House and the Senate are fairly equally divided. There's too much heated political rhetoric. What we're going to get under Trump is we're going to get immigration policies by executive order, and some will work, some won't. Trump will sound mean. Will his stuff be?
But I didn't sound mean to you guys, Rick.
When was the last
He
time
doesn't sound mean to me. He doesn't sound mean to me, and it's not because I am some sort of racist madman. Okay, you keep going. Let me know. Let me know because you're the host. Let me know when I can.
Okay, cool. Rick, when was the last time we had any immigration?
1983 under Reagan.
And so when we put forth, when that one bill from Lankford was put forth, was that was going to be similar to what was going on with the last immigration reform, correct?
I don't know, but they're not going to get enough votes for it because each side, or enough people on each side, view it as it'll screw them up when they run for re-election. So we're going to get more in the House and Senate. We're probably going to get more political paralysis. If some Messiah of the Senate could stand up, and I don't see anybody, and get everybody to come together and vote for a thing, that would be great, because in the 40 years since we had immigration reform, there are technology has changed for how we watch the border. There's a zillion great new things we could try on both sides, but we can't pass any of that stuff.
And in terms of executive orders, because remember, and Shaq, you said that you listen. Now, I think, and I'm against a family separation deal. We were talking about ruling by executive order. When Trump was in there the first time, he ruled by executive order and had his family separation. That was his big push, because he had Jeff Sessions in there, and Jeff Sessions was the one who actually pointed out that was their whole deterrence factor, that they would separate these families. I'm against that. I think that's a bad thing. I think we need more comprehensive immigration reform. I think we need more lawyers at the border to do a lot more of the background checks, to all the legal stuff, to get them through on the judges. Shaq, can you agree with that? Or are you for a family separation and a mass deportation, which is actually what he's talking about doing again?
So that's brilliant, right? I wasn't allowed to respond before, and Jacoby knows that he can talk over me and do whatever he likes because he's protected by the founders of the network. And so instead of allowing me to respond to what I want to respond, he then asked me a question. So, Shaq, are you for mass deportation and family separation? So what are my choices? I could either answer, no, I'm not for that, in which case I have to backtrack the things that I said previously, or I can say, yes, I'm absolutely for that, right? Because I'm such a heartless bastard that I think it's absolutely amazing and an incredible policy to separate children from their parents and have them locked up in separate places and deported, because that's really what I believe in, okay? Neither of those two things are true. Okay, so if you guys want to try and bully me with your amazing intellect and moral superiority, the issue at hand when it comes to immigration is that, one, absolutely, the United States and its peer group, including two of the countries that I am citizens of, need to reform this to make it fairer. They need to do something about the people that are already here. They also need to do something to disincentivize people from breaking the laws, okay? But it is inherently unfair and is also separating families. When families will send, generally, their boys across the border or into the UK or whatever, and then say to them, quickly go and get a girl and get married and have children, okay? Because then you can sponsor us over, okay? And then the families can't be separated. And meanwhile, they're separated from the other family members. There is so much unfairness in there. You brought up the issue about, well, they're building they want to build a wall on the southern border, and it's racist because the people coming from down there are Latin Americans and the people of color. You know what? I don't think that anybody on the Republican side said, well, let's not build a border on the northern border, and let's not build a wall on the northern border because most Canadians are white. That's not what the argument was. The argument was that most of the immigration was flooding across the southern border, okay? The reason why Australia doesn't want boat people coming in from our nearest islands like Indonesia, and it's not Indonesians generally that are coming into our country, the reason that they are trying to put a stop to that is not because they're racist against Asians or Muslims or people of color. It's because they don't want that kind of immigration to fly into the country, okay? They're also trying to deal with things like, if you come into the country and you overstay your visa, then you are going to be removed and subject to exclusion periods. But what we have is these bleeding heart liberals that will sit there and say, well, these people are already here, so let's just allow them to continue to stay and give them visas. And in doing so, we'll let them jump to the front of the queue whilst ignoring the plight of other people who wanted to come. There is unfairness in that. And I will remind you, Jatovia, that when I talked about how that affects members of my family who are not white, just like I am, you sat there and laughed your head off, saying how hilarious it was that I've got family members in India and Pakistan and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Fiji that have been put to the back of the queue. You sat there and you laughed about it. So don't sit there and try and take the moral high ground over me. Thank you very much.
That's ridiculous. No, I didn't laugh. So again,
you know what? I won't do it because we've already buried the hatchet. But I will outside the show send you links to the shows where you did exactly that.
Okay, anchor babies. You brought up that. That's a Larry Gohmert thing that he kept pushing.
I didn't say anchor babies. I didn't bring up anchor babies at all. No, I didn't.
Let me finish.
No, I didn't. But you said that I brought up anchor babies. I did not bring up anchor babies.
Stop.
I did not bring up anchor babies.
Stop. The gentleman asked if we can talk. Let me just finish my comment and then Rick can go. So you brought up anchor babies where you're talking about people going across.
I did not bring up anchor babies.
Let me finish.
Why do you want to just keep repeating it when I'm telling you I did not say anything about anchor babies?
Let me finish.
I said nothing about anchor babies.
Rick, you please go. Rick, take it away.
So
I said nothing about anchor babies. I corrected you and told you I said nothing about anchor babies, and then you immediately responded with, "You brought up anchor babies." I said nothing about anchor babies.
Okay,
all right.
Rick,
so here is from a private speech, like a cause for hope here. During a private speech, Trump told Speaker Mike Johnson he's going to let a lot of migrants into the country. We're going to bring back the strongest borders in the world, and we're going to let a lot of people come in, Mike. We're going to let a lot of people come in, which I would be great with that if we could, get the border under control and then let a ton of people in an orderly fashion. Well,
But that is all. But Rick, that is all
Yes,
that
that's
Republicans
not-
and outside of the
yeah.
United States centre-right people like myself are saying. Let's have some order and have a process to allow people to come in. That's all we're saying. And all we get back is you're racist,
Langford
you
put
want
up
to
a
separate
bill and
babies,
Trump
you know,
turned it
you guys
down.
are
The
heartless,
bill is for
etc.
order.
That's all we. And when we try to point out to you how people get abused, how children are abused, the human trafficking risks,
Hey,
etc., you guys come back at us and tell us that we're all these heartless bastards all the time. What gives with that?
How's it
And you
going,
actually
Nick?
say to somebody like myself who's a bloody immigrant, I'm not, my parents are immigrants to Australia. So what? You don't think I care about my family that immigrated to the United States?
So I
I'm
brought
telling
up-
you about the issues that we have faced as a family, and you guys sit there and dismiss it and laugh all the bloody time.
Shaq, every time I talk, you laugh through anything I said. So please don't play this bleeding heart.
Jatobi,
So
you
point out-
just tried to
just to point
attribute
out,
something that I
what I've
repeatedly
stated
said
over
I
and
didn't
over,
say.
what
I
I've
never
stated
brought up
over and
anchor
over, what
babies.
I've stated
I
over
never
and over,
ever
what
brought up
I've
anchor
stated
babies.
over and over. Can we talk, please? So what I've stated over and over, and I even asked you a simple question about it. You couldn't even do anything. You went on some tirade. So I pointed out, yes, we need more lawyers. We need more judges. We need to actually fix the immigration system to make it better. And what Trump is talking about pulling all this immigration status, you know, that affects me personally. So don't even act like
It
you're
affects
like
me personally too.
only bastion of hope. So again,
It affects me
what we're
personally
pointing out
too.
again- what we're pointing out again is that the immigration system needs to be fixed. The individual in office right now, I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong. But he's pushing mass deportations and all this other stuff.
Good.
That's what
Yep.
he stated. And we
Yep.
do not need mass deportations, and we don't need the military walking into neighborhoods trying to
Right.
do
So you want reform to the immigration system, but only the reform that Democrats support. If it's reform that Republicans support, then that's not real reform.
I know you don't want to hear it. He's not talking about real reform. Mass deportation is not real reform.
And so real reform is what? Letting 25 million people come across the southern border? That's real reform?
What real reform is, but yet you ignore it. That's what
So
you
what?
do.
So what's real reform by your standard? What's real reform? Let's have unlimited. Let's have unlimited immigration, unvetted, unlimited and unvetted immigration across the border, and then let those people stay. Is that your version of reform?
Work on the border and stuff. I told you that we need to work on visas. I told you all this stuff. I told you what real reform is.
You want to work on visas. You want to work on visas for the unlimited amount of people that flood across your border without dealing with those people that don't want to flood across your border, who have to wait in an ever-increasing waiting list in order to be processed. Because the only immigration and the only sort of policies that you'll support are Democrat policies, and if it's a policy from Republicans, then that's not reform. That's your position on every issue.
Hold on a second, because we got to wrap up. But if I heard him correctly,
it does. Absolutely, it does.
If I heard him correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that both Rick and Jatobi said that the last time the immigration reform took place was actually under Reagan. Reagan was a Republican, if I remember correctly, and everything. So they actually acknowledged that the Republicans had.
There was no reform at all under George Bush Sr. There was no reform under under Bill Clinton or George Bush Jr. or under Obama. No reform. Nobody talked about immigration since 1983. Really?
Shaq, you're not this is where I'm saying you're not listening.
I'm listening. I just don't agree with you.
The major reform happened under Reagan. People have talked and
you didn't say major reform. You said there was no reform.
No, Shaq,
you said there has been no reform.
When you talk, you can't hear. So major reform happened. The major legislation that happened that we're talking about up under Reagan, that happened. And that was major legislation that actually helped the border and helped things. Ever since then, there's been a lot of talk, nitpicking, and kicking the can down the road. Even when Trump came into office, his quote unquote, if you want to say major reform, it wasn't major reform. He was just doing stuff by executive order and kicking the can down the road. Major reform goes through a legislative process that actually fixes the border. This is why Langford, when he brought up that bill, that was actually considered major reform because it went through the legislative process. It was something that was going to do something. It was really going to lock something in. But again, what you're saying is that, no, you're just ignoring. No,
We're actually giving you stuff, but you don't care. You
There
legitimately
was
either
what
don't
you
care or don't
originally said
you're
was that
willfully
there was
ignorant
no
in terms of not
reform. Okay, you
listening.
said that. Let me respond. What you originally said was that there was
Point
no
out here,
reform. There has
we're at
been
the end of
reform.
the show.
I
Let's
still
do
can't
fact
go.
based.
I still can't
Yeah,
go.
we're
All right.
leaving. Okay, let's do fact based. It's just you and I. Let's do
Well,
fact
what's
based.
the point? It's just going to be you because I can't say anything. So
You
it's just
just
going to
put
be
us
you.
up here. So let's talk. Me and you, Shaq. Me and you, man. I love you, man. I love you, dog. I really do. But I just want to ask you, if major reform was in 1988, what we're talking about, the legislation and everything, that's the major reform that we're pointing out the last time it happened. You're saying that people didn't talk about it. No, we never said that. What we did is we're saying that nobody actually did any major legislation besides that Reagan thing. People have kicked it down the road. The next piece of major legislation came from James Lankford. That was the actual Republican that people actually, there were Republicans that didn't like part of it. There were Democrats that didn't like part of it. Not everybody agrees, which is great. That is what it is. Not everybody has every single solution. It's supposed to be bipartisan. It's supposed to be experiences from everybody, because then you can make that better legislation because people have that. So again, let's talk, me and you, man. I love you, dog. I love you, Shaq. Can you name me what major legislation you're talking about? Educate, enlighten me. Maybe I'm missing something, because the last piece of legislation I saw was when Reagan did it. That's a Republican that you say I don't listen to Republicans. No, I'm pointing out a Republican to you, but you say, oh. So again, can you point out to me the major legislation that you're talking about that happened maybe up under Bush, up under Obama, up under Clinton, up under Bush, up under Trump, even up under Biden? What major legislation are you speaking of that I'm missing? Enlighten me. It's just you and me, dog. We're in this room together. I love you. What you got?
Firstly, Jatovi, I'm going to extend an olive branch to you. Why don't you and I have a one-on-one show for now, and we can discuss all of our political disagreements, because I'm sure that there is an audience that would like to see that, including people from the network. So I'm happy to do that, and I have equal affection for you. So I'm sure that would be an interesting conversation. Secondly, I didn't say that there was no major reform. You guys said that there was no reforms at all. And what I pointed out to you before was that there have been reform proposals on both sides of the aisle. The issue with immigration is not something that the Democrats have always been in support of. In the past, including under the Reagan years and the Bush years, California and New York were places that were held by Republicans. They were all for more liberal immigration rules. Those immigration rules were opposed by Democrats. So when Democrats today are trying to suggest that Republicans are totally anti-immigration, it doesn't make sense when you look at the proposals that have been brought up and have died because of opposition, including times when it's been filibustered by the Senate, and I can't remember the exact years, but it's been filibustered in the Senate several times. Now, I am happy to have a conversation with you, but I just want to say this. We have people who watch this show frequently, who I have taken the time to respond to more frequently than any other panelist that comes onto the show, that are sitting here saying, well, this is the Shaq show, this is all about Shaq's opinions, etc. I've left the show. I've been taken backstage by hosts of the show. I have been silenced, muted. I've had other guests that sit on the right that have been that the people who run the network refuse to send links to anymore. This is how the people on the right have been treated. If you don't want us here, that's perfectly okay. We'll stop coming, okay? But to suggest after I haven't been here for a couple of weeks that this is nothing more than what Shaq thinks, okay, just get back in your echo chamber then. Go back and watch MSNBC. Oh, no, you can't, because MSNBC has decided that they want to go and talk to Trump. Go back and watch CNN. Oh, no, you can't, because CNN is now trying to moderate their positions, okay? So what this is a heap of people that are tuning in, that are friends of Kimberly's, that are saying, well, let's just put shit on everybody who's on the right. And I can tell you now that if any of you guys want to come to the right-wing networks that I show up on, you'd be more than welcome to come on. And I'll also make note that when Kimberly was taking me backstage all the time, and viewers, let me finish, and viewers were putting in messages about how upset they were at the way we were treated, those comments weren't brought up at the bottom of the screen. They
Chat.
weren't brought up at the bottom of the screen. So as soon as there's a comment that says something negative about the right, brought up on the screen, but when it's something that's brought up about you, Jacoby, or about left-wing
we
guests,
got that. We got
that's silent. Okay? So I think it speaks volumes.
Shaq, it's me and you. It's me and you, dog.
If it's you and me, we're over
having
time. We're over
conversation.
time. If we're over time, I'll have a special episode in 10 minutes time from now.
Shaq, it's me and you, dog. We're talking.
I just said to you.
You and I talking. This is.
I just said to you.
Progressives versus libertarians. So let's
Jacoby,
talk. This is.
Jacoby,
hold
I just
on,
offered that. I just offered that.
Jack, we're talking now. But
We
yet
are
you're
over
arguing
time.
That
Jacoby, we're over time. You just watched Kimberly have a crack at me for going over time.
This is crazy. We're legitimately talking, yet you're talking over me. Oh, we're gonna do it a different time. We're over time. We already know that. We know that. That's what they're doing. If they're gonna let it go, they're gonna let it go. And we're gonna talk.
Nick's
And
actually
hold on
going
real
to
quick,
progressive versus libertarian. Nick
let
actually
me
goes
tell you
progressive versus
No,
libertarian.
no,
Let me tell you
no.
this.
I'm not gonna. No, no. I'm not gonna.
Shaq, let me finish because what you had stated when you came back with your immigration information that you said that hey, we're talking about you guys said that there was no reform. Truthfully, there wasn't. But you then changed your statement by saying, well, people did suggest reform. That is where you went down. That is what we are saying to you. We agree. People suggested it. Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Green Party, the Rent Too Damn High Party, all of them suggested stuff. Nothing happened. There was executive orders that took place. Those things happened, but no actual true defined legislation happened since 88 or back with Reagan. That was it. And that's what we were talking about. And it sounds like you agreed that that legislation, that what we're talking about, major legislation, happened. And that's not what you're talking about. And this is where the listening comes in and not playing the semantic games, because again, no major legislation has happened since Reagan. Everything has been nipped around the sides. And we agree, people have suggested. I am not arguing that people haven't suggested. Larry Goldman, that was his whole Anchor Babies thing, was what you stated. And I hate to say it, don't get triggered. Do not get triggered over it.
But I didn't say it. When did I say anything about Anchor Babies?
Shaq, that was Larry Goldman's definition of Anchor Babies, what you stated. That was what he came off of. And so that was way back when. So everybody suggested stuff, from even Elliot Spitzer. All these people have. But again, no major legislation has happened since Reagan. And legislation came up, but that got knocked down. Every time Republicans were in office, but that got shut down. Democrats were in office, that got shut down. Why? Because the opposing party used it as a political football. So then when the one time it actually got put up and it was a serious take on it, because it became a bipartisan issue, and both the Republicans and the Democrats actually agreed on it. Not everybody, and I'm not talking about the AOCs to the Bernie Sanders to the Marjorie Taylor Greens to so on and so forth. No, I'm talking about the centers that we're talking about, the center left and center right. They agreed. They were going to push it through. But then what took place? Donald Trump was the one who said that he did not want that because he wanted that actual thing to run on. He then even went on an actual presser and said, yes, you can blame me for it. That is what he stated. That is what Lindsey Graham pointed out. That is what other Republicans had pointed out, that he had made that phone call and wanted that to happen. So again, I'm not saying that, hey, we don't need immigration because of this and that, immigration reform. What I'm saying is I want a legitimate look at immigration, because we do agree overstaying visas right now is the number one reason with immigration. So to fix that, we need more lawyers and individuals to get in there so they can take care of those cases and make sure those cases are taken care of. Because again, they're in the line too, and they need help. At the border, yes, we need We need more money for the border to take care of individuals that are crossing, asylum seekers. We need people down there to check their cases on asylum seekers. We need individuals to go through their cases if that asylum sought process, or if that individual can even seek asylum, because a lot of them are coming over for money reasons. That's not in asylum. So all these things are necessary, and all these legit. So we're in agreement that we need to fix immigration. But my point is, mass deportation doesn't do that. Mass deportation creates more of an economic problem for the U.S., a true headache, a true societal problem, because now, we did have the Show Me Your Papers Act, which was really a bad thing. We had the stop and frisk thing in New York, which really harmed more minorities than anybody else, and minorities were carrying less than anyone else. And these are just facts that this is what ends up happening. Laugh as you wish, but this is the way the practice happens. And when we run into these practices of implementing these things, we forget about looking at the whole how it plays out. That's why when the whole Biden thing with what was that? There was a war on drugs with Nancy Reagan. That became a problem because that affected more minorities than anybody. There was the crime bill, which Biden was actually a part of, and that actually affected more minorities, but because of the way that it played out. So they tried to backtrack and fix how it was actually implemented. These things happen. But when we're not looking at it, we're just saying mass deportation is going to help. No, it doesn't, because it's going to affect so many people that are already here. And we need to figure out a process to make sure they're still in line. They've got to pay their $1,000 too to get through that green card process as well, because they're going to have to pay taxes. They already pay particular taxes, and they're not getting anything in return for those taxes. So again, we need a comprehensive immigration reform. We do. We all agree on that. How we're going to get there, that's where we disagree. And I completely disagree that we could ever do any mass deportation, because we don't have the facilities. We don't have, because then we're going to internment camps. We have individuals we're taking naturalized citizenship away from. So then you have individuals. He's already talked about these things. These are part of his policies. You laugh, and you talk about people laughing at people's struggles. Do you know who that affects, Shaq? Do you know? You don't. But you laugh because you think it's some funny thing. And I'm trying to have a serious conversation with you, but you want to go down some road, but you don't want to do that.
Down what road? I haven't said anything for 7 minutes.
And I can talk for more, because this has a personal effect on me and not you.
What road am I trying to take it down if I haven't spoken for 7 minutes? 7 minutes ago, I made the statement that what we should do. Okay, I still can't speak. Fair enough. Keep going.
No, take it away. Take it away. Show me where I'm wrong.
7 minutes ago, almost, or roughly, okay, I made the statement that I'm sick and tired of being attacked by certain network producers and founders for going overtime. So why don't we do a special show in 10 minutes time from now? And Mark Lee and Nick comes on and just said, I'll keep going, right? This is after I've just had comments that have come in from LinkedIn that are in support of me that haven't been brought up here. And all the comments that have come up have been from Kimberly's friends that say something negative about me. Now, when I wanted to have a conversation with Sasha about economics, we had two separate shows. When Adam wanted to talk to Sasha about Ukraine, Russia, they had a separate show. And when I say, why don't we just end this show? Why don't we just end this show and start another one in 10 minutes so that we adhere to the time frames that I'm constantly being attacked for breaching? You guys say no, and then you speak for 7 minutes, and when I shake my head and laugh at something, I'm taking the conversation down a different rabbit hole. Are you guys fucking serious?
Here now, talk. If you're so adamant that you don't want to talk right now because we're talking right now, and then you laugh at a particular moment when I'm talking about something very serious, and then it wasn't even, I'm laughing at the time now. No, if you're here now, talk about immigration. That's what we're here doing. Talk about it.
instead of talking about complaining about
I've
all this
already look. First of all, I've already made the points that I wanted to make about immigration. Nothing that you've said on your rant counters what I have said to you. Okay, immigration reform absolutely needs to happen, but I think it's a bit rich for Democrats today, right? And it's not just Democrats in America, a country that I'm not a citizen of, and quite frankly, as much as I love your country, okay, it doesn't really matter to me, other than the fact that I have family members that are affected by your immigration policy. But other than that, if you guys want to bring in 20 million or 200 million people, okay, or no people, it doesn't have much of an effect on my life other than how it affects my family, okay? It seems a bit rich that when Donald Trump was in office and proposed immigration reform, it was continually shot down by Democrats. And now that you've allowed 10 million or 15 million or 20 million or whatever figure you believe has come in over the last almost 4 years, now you want to have immigration reform, and that immigration reform consists of fast-tracking visas for those people that have come in over the last handful of years, whilst ignoring the people that are in the queue that are going to continue to have to wait in the queue. Okay, and then you say, well, what about family separation? Well, what about the families that were separated because they didn't want to bring everybody across the border? What about the families that are separated because they've had to make tough choices? It is a dysfunctional system, and that dysfunction creates situations that are completely unfair. They're unfair on young people that grew up in the United States and their parents had broken the laws, but they grew up there. It's unfair on them. It's unfair on the kids that didn't grow up in the United States because the parents didn't want to break the laws, and then they can't say, well, I've got a US education or an Australian education or whatever. There is so much unfairness in the system. But you guys sit there and go, oh, well, Donald Trump wants to deport everybody. Well, Obama deported people. What's the number that was reported the other day that Bill Clinton reported? Was it 11 or 12 million people or something that he was reported to have deported? But see, you guys don't want to have a conversation about it. What you guys want to do is to suggest that only the ideas that are pushed by progressives and liberals and Democrats and the AOC wing of your party, only they are able to talk about immigration in a heartfelt way, and everybody else is heartless. And you do the same thing when it comes to taxes. You do the same thing when it comes to healthcare. You do the same thing when it comes to education funding or infrastructure funding, etc. Only your side has a valid point, and the rest of us aren't listening. And what you miss is that if you have a look at the Republicans of today, you've lost all of the old school Republicans to whom? To your party. That's why the Cheneys are over on your side. And who did the Republicans gain? They gained the anti-establishment left. They gained people like the Bernie bros, who were so frustrated at how the government acted. They gained the people that went and protested the Occupy Wall Street movement because they said it's unfair that the big banks receive billions and tens of billions and hundreds of billions of dollars in bailout money while real families are losing their homes. Those people didn't get a home in the Democrats. They went to the Republicans. So what you want to do is you want to try and come after people like me and say that we're laughing and carrying on. No, you are the people that aren't listening. You are the people that are being dismissive of the issues and the complaints that other people bring up. Okay, it's you guys that are doing this, not our side. Okay, I'm going to be right back. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just going to go off camera, but I promise you I'm still here. I'll be like 30 seconds.
Okay, since I've got the camera real quick, just to point out the Trump immigration bill that you're talking about. Again, it was family separation. That was what got shot down and struck down by the actual judges, hence the reason Jeff Sessions had to go on and change that. Biden actually hit one of his first bills that he put up was an immigration bill. They didn't take it up. So again, it was kicked down the road by everybody. The only serious legislation that actually got put up was when James Lankford put up his bill, a Republican who actually got bipartisan support. And it was going to pass. However, Donald Trump shot that down. So in terms of the Trump immigration, again, Obama put up information or a bill on immigration that got struck down. Clinton did, Bush did, all of them did. It got struck down. The last bill that actually had a legitimate chance of passing or the only bill ever since Reagan that had a legitimate chance of passing wasn't Clinton, wasn't Bush, wasn't Obama, wasn't Trump, wasn't Biden. It was actually James Langford, and that got struck down by Trump. And Trump wasn't even in office. He was running. He was campaigning. In terms of, and I already pointed out, family separation was the only bill that he did. That was his deterrence. That's what he pointed out.
Let me come on family separation. I don't have as much of an issue with that. Not because I'm heartless, but because of the issues to do with families. But I just want to bring up this immigration bill that you guys keep bringing up that Donald Trump opposed when he wasn't the president. That was not an immigration reform bill. That was a bill that was ridiculous. And well, why did Bernie Sanders oppose it then?
So
why did 6 other Democrats oppose it?
Again, I already said this a little while ago, and I guess I don't know why you didn't listen then. But of course, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the progressive wing didn't like it. They voted against. They were going to vote against.
Why didn't they like it?
Let me finish.
Okay, let's assume the Republicans are all heartless people. Why didn't the progressives not like it?
I'm trying to answer your question, but you're interrupting me answering your question. So let me finish. Bernie Sanders and the progressive wing didn't want it. MAGA wing did not want it. The center right, the center left wanted it. Why didn't the extremes want it? Because there were issues that they had with particular numbers in terms of allowing people across and sending people back. The right, the MAGA wing, they hated the fact that there was a cap because they read into it. They use it as a political talking point, talking about, oh, that means there are going to be all these people that are going to be let in at this 5,000. So everybody had issues with the bill. No bill is ever going to be perfect. If it is for one side, then it is a major problem. So looking at the bill itself, HB2 was the one that Mike Johnson said, oh, well, we should put that on the floor. Well, actually, the Langford bill actually went further than HB2 in a lot of different areas, but it didn't go as far in some. So it took some from HB2 and actually had it center right and center left. The wings did not want it. So therefore, again, it was actually a bill that was going to be very heavy Republican. There were a lot of Republican wishes on there. But again, both parties saw this as an actual bill that was going to be put forward to help out what the problem is. Because there hasn't been a bill since. There hasn't been a bill since Reagan. So again, those wings didn't want it, but the center right and the center left agreed. This was something positive.
Okay, so to the producer. Okay, come on, you've been speaking. Come on.
I didn't. You asked me a question, so you interrupted me talking just to ask me a question, and I just answered your question. And in terms of family separation, the problem that you had with family separation is that we still have kids today that still don't know where their parents are, that we've separated at the border under Trump. And there was a big push because we did not keep track of both. And that was a problem. And that was an extreme position that we laughed at this stuff. Do you talk about people laughing at
rubbish? Because it's absolute rubbish.
We have a serious conversation because you don't want to accept the truth. Did you want me to bring up this? So let me finish real quick. So in terms of
you bring up multiple points I want to respond to, and you just want to keep talking.
Let me finish. Yes, it is unfair. Look at how unfair it is for the individual who's been waiting in Mexico for at least 5 years right now, because the back of the line keeps getting pushed back further and further because we don't take the opportunity to actually fix this situation. And there are individuals who say, screw it, that are at the back of the line sitting there for 5 years now and chance coming across the border. There are people in extreme situations. So the border.
Sorry, what did you? Sorry, I misheard you. What did you say coming across the border?
Huh?
I misheard what you said. Did you say chance coming across the border? Is that what you said?
Yes, there are people that take a chance to come across the border because
chance. Sorry, yeah, I misheard. Don't forget, there's a bit of a delay sound.
They're sitting at the back. They've been sitting there in Mexico, sitting in Guatemala,
and they take a chance to go across the border. Yeah, that's fine.
They're like, hey. So we need to fix the actual process. We need to fix the asylum setup. We need to fix the process of okay. Now again, I'll reiterate: we need more lawyers. We need more judges at the border to take these cases, to do the background checks, to go ahead and get these individuals situated with their visas or whatever they need. Because one,
Those are individuals that are coming to the country because the immigrants have provided us so much in what we need as a country economic wise. That is, you can look up the billions of dollars that they provided into our actual economy. So we need these individuals to come in. They're actually doing a lot of the jobs that a lot of individuals of Native American descent don't actually do. On top of that, they have a lower crime rate than the native born Americans. These are all things that are there.
How many more points do you want to bring up before I can respond to the point 6 points ago?
Shaq, I had to write a list of everything that you wrote. You kept saying, so stop all the, you're the only one who stays on one point.
Okay, keep going. No problem. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
So you can grab a sheet of paper if you think that you need.
I'm not going to grab a sheet of paper.
Well,
it's 3 o'clock.
I figured I wanted to have a responsible conversation.
It's 3:30 in the morning here. I'm not going to get a sheet of paper to take notes because you don't want me to speak like a normal conversation. I'll sit back and let you keep going, and then I'll respond.
Getting back to the unfair piece. So yes, it is unfair, but the only way to fix it is through legislation and any type of major legislation. And until we can get to that point and actually just attempt the major legislation, like the James Lankford bill would have actually been some attempt and actually been able to help something at the border, but that got shot down again. So then you're talking about the deporter in chief. That was President Obama. He took a lot of flack for being the deporter in chief. He deported more people than Donald Trump did and Joe Biden did. So yes, he was a deporter in chief. He deported more people. He took a lot of flack for it. But again, what he was doing was by the process. Trump doesn't want to do by the process. He's creating a completely new process, talking about he's going to do mass deportations. That within itself, we don't have the capability of doing. We legitimately don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the actual personnel to do it. We don't have the logistics to do it. So to do mass deportations, you don't have even the money to do it. And he's saying, well, it doesn't matter how much it's going to cost. I'm going to use military personnel. This would be the first time ever in U.S. history to have the military on the streets of the actual country hunting down other individuals. That is the first time in U.S. history, and that is frightening. We have had the military personnel help out with helping out with the hurricane situations, helping out with the floods and the fires and so on and so forth. But that's a completely different thing. That's not hunting down individuals in neighborhoods. That's not doing checkpoints. That's not holding and housing individuals. So it is a very scary thing to think about using the U.S. military to go after individuals. And then what happens when the U.S. military comes across protesters? Are they to shoot the protesters? Are they to what? Arrest the protesters doing stuff? Because Donald Trump in his first stint in office said that he wanted to shoot protesters. So are we back to that again? Because that's a problem. And these are all the things that I can read a bumper sticker and say, oh, that sounds great. But to think it all the way out is a problem. And you brought up something about homes. Oh, we forgot about homes. Again, the only individual who had a plan about the future dealing with homes was the individual who the Donald Trump ran against. Because Donald Trump didn't have a position on homes. He didn't have a position on the economy besides tariffs and taxes, which is actually going to cost the economy. So the reason she lost and that all stuff, that's all past. And arguing over that, we can come up with 11 different things and we'd all disagree on all those things. So that doesn't matter anymore. What we're talking about is moving forward. And the immigration itself is a problem. And mass deportation, again, we don't have the infrastructure personnel or the people or the means to do it. And then how does that affect the economy? Pulling those many workers outside of the economy and that money out of the economy is going to hurt badly. And that's going to jack up fruit prices. That's going to jack up services at hotels. That's going to jack up hospital services. So there's a lot of things that it's going to affect the economy with mass deportations. So again, we agree that, hey, it needs reform. You're just on the idea that mass deportations is going to work.
Did you want me to respond now, did you? Okay, so, well, no, I don't normally have conversations with anybody where they will talk for that length of time bring up the amount of different points that you have, not let me respond to anything along the way, and then ask me to get a pen and paper and write a list down. I've never had a conversation with somebody in real life.
Here and go through 11 different points. You brought up a whole bunch of other stuff that I didn't even write down when you had your little time to talk. So stop with the whole Shaq is the perfect. No, get off your throne. Stop throwing stones from a glass house. You put your pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. So stop with all that disrespect. Let's have respect for each other and have a conversation.
Listen, it's just fuck off, you Toby. That wasn't being disrespectful. I was having a crack at you, not disrespectfully, right? Come on now. You have a crack at me, I have a crack at your back, all right? Don't sit there and say it was disrespectful. Seriously. And I'll have you know I jump out of bed with my pants at the end and jump through both legs because I'm superhuman like that. Okay, so look, mass deportation. Look, obviously I don't like the look of that. I don't like the sound of that. I'm not inhuman. I'm not heartless. Okay, and I've talked about this on another show. I have had a family member of mine, I won't name the country, who was technically in the grey area of immigration rules, and my other family members weren't aware of it, who actually had law enforcement come to that individual when that individual was, I going from memory now, 1920, something like that, and put that individual in handcuffs. And we watched that individual burst into tears. And that individual had been in that country since that individual was, young, prepubescent. Okay, that's difficult to watch. Okay, and I've seen the hardships and the pain and the trauma and the stress that family members of mine related to that individual more closely than I am went through. Okay, I am not anti-immigration, but the policy that has been followed so far is a dangerous policy that creates a lot of potentially unintended consequences. Some of those consequences are stuff that can't be measured, that's painful for people to see, such as that kid that waits in line from the time they're 12 to 19, who is then told that the kid whose parents brought them across the border when they were 12 is now being fast-tracked because they had the benefit of a Western education. And this kid is told, well, you are actually too old now to be admitted as a juvenile, and also you don't have the education and skill set. That's pretty unfair, right? Those people are going to feel aggrieved by that process. What's also unfair is what we know is happening. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting that this is the majority, but we know that there is a heightened risk of human trafficking. We know that there are people that are being trafficked across the border, and young people, boys who are basically being forced to distribute drugs and things like that, okay, and girls who are being forced to get involved in sexual acts and things like that when they're underage. That's a problem. If we're going to have a conversation about immigration reform in Western countries, we cannot sit there and ignore those issues. And I don't think it's reasonable for the left to expect that the right is going to sit there and say, oh, sure, well, you guys just let a whole heap of people in, right, unaccounted for, unvetted, and then we're going to sit here on the right and say, well, you know what we'll do is we'll just deal with it. Maybe one of the ways of dealing with it is to make sure that in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years from now, that people will know that the next time that the left opens up the border and lets a mass amount of people flood across the border, that's not going to work and you're going to be removed and it's going to be painful. Maybe sometimes it's tough love. I don't know. I don't know what's fair and reasonable, but I certainly don't think that sitting there and saying that you are going to give money and resources and fast-track visas to people is your version of immigration reform, and any opposition to that is heartless. I don't think that that works, and I don't accept that. The idea that you talked about with transient workers or temporary workers that come up to do a specific job, I think that that is absolutely fantastic. There are other countries, especially in the Middle East, that actually allow those sorts of visas where people can come over and find work and then change their visas that allows them to work. And the thing is that, hey, as long as you are not going to be any kind of dramatic financial costs, right? You're self-sufficient, you've got work, you've got things taken care of, no problems, come on in. You also mentioned about the contribution to the economy that comes from immigration. Absolutely. The United States and Australia and the UK and Canada certainly would not be the countries that they are today without the voluntary immigration that has occurred. I say voluntary because I don't want to dismiss the involuntary immigration, if we can call it that, the slavery issues of the United States, but I'm not talking about a couple of hundred years ago, and I'm just talking about immigration sort of more recently. The immigration that came into the United States predominantly from Europe after World War I and especially after World War II is the reason I believe the United States is as successful as a country as it is, and its Western peer group is as successful as they are. There's no question. But when those people came over, they didn't have high levels of regulations, they didn't have high levels of taxation, and also they didn't have a high level of social services being provided by the taxpayer dollars that were taken off the people that already lived there. They had to come over there and eke out a living off their own, okay? I think it is pretty obvious that people are going to feel some resentment when they're struggling to survive and they know that some of their hard-earned money is being taxed and those tax dollars not being used to help them and their families, but are being used to bring new people in, okay? That kind of immigration is not necessarily going to lead to economic growth. The next thing I'll say about economic growth is any group of people that you bring into a country is automatically going to increase the size of the economy. So the question is, what type of people do you want to have? Now, I come from a Western country, so if I wanted to come and live in the United States, clearly I would not try to break the rules, okay? Now, I have no intention of ever becoming an American citizen or living there. I'm quite happy traveling through there and spending a couple of months a year there and just enjoying myself. But if I wanted to, I would obviously abide by the rules, and I've got the resources to have a lawyer and go through the process. I absolutely acknowledge that people coming from other countries may not have those sorts of resources. However, some of the people coming from those countries do. Some of those people are business people. Some of those people are more highly educated. Some of those people, if they were admitted to the country, would be able to make arguably a much larger contribution to the economy than other people who come in without those skills. Those more educated people, those entrepreneurial business people that are coming from developing countries are also unlikely to want to break the rules. Why? Because why would they? They would prefer to do things the right way. And what you're doing inadvertently is you're pushing those sorts of people to the back of the queue in favor of those people that would prefer to take a chance. Does that make sense on economic grounds? Well, you can't prove or disprove that, because on this particular issue, what you cannot do is measure what didn't happen. So you can measure the contribution of immigrants and of immigration generally based on the immigration that you've had. What you can't measure is what the economic contribution to the country would have been had you had a different immigration policy. I would argue that the United States and other Western countries, such as its peer group, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, etc., and some of the Western European countries, would benefit much more if they had a policy that had some sort of qualification, which was one, favoring those people that actually do have either the financial resources or the education coming from developing countries that are likely to have an immediate impact on the US economy. And then for those people that don't, that are coming from terrible conditions, that just want to build a better life, okay? Like people in my family who came from Fiji, from very, very poor conditions. For those people, you give them a pathway, you give them an opportunity. Now, my parents and my uncles and aunties that moved to Australia, they were lucky enough that they got really great grades at school and they came in through scholarships and educational achievements. Other people in my family came from very, very poor backgrounds, and the way that they got their admission was exactly the way that I'm talking about, where they were able to come over into low-skilled jobs where they lived on site or they lived on farmland and they worked, and then they applied for another visa and then they stayed for a while. And you know what? When you go and talk to people like those family members of mine, they are some of the most patriotic people about the country, because they sit there and they wave the American flag or the Australian flag or whatever flag, and they wave that and they're proud of it and they say, I am American and I worked to get here, and they feel it and they love it and they're proud of it. Okay? That sort of immigration, I'm all for. What I'm not for is just saying, well, we're going to let anybody in. We're not going to vet them. We don't care if they come to the country and then they commit crimes. We're still not going to deport them. We're going to have, sanctuary cities protect them, etc. How does that make sense? The majority of people are not okay with that, including immigrants from those very same regions. I agree with you 100% that the immigration system needs to be reformed. But what I don't agree with you with is the idea that after having a completely ridiculous and failed immigration policy, such as what has happened in your country, during the Biden-Harris administration, that the best way to reform and deal with it is to not make any tough decisions such as family separation, but to simply sit there and say, let's fast-track visas for them. I don't think that that's appropriate. I think that that rewards the very kind of behavior that what we should be doing is discouraging.
So nothing you said at the end there was actually proposed. That was actually the talking point, but none of that was actually proposed. Hence the reason, again, I bring up the Langford bill. It had nothing to do with that. And when you're talking about human traffic, the unfair, we agree, again, yes.
Toby, you've got sanctuary states in America. You've got, no, hang on. No, wait a second. You've got sanctuary states in America that will protect criminals on not just minor crimes. We're not talking about people that are being done for speeding tickets. We're talking about people that have committed serious offenses who the state governments are protecting them because of sanctuary city rules and not dealing with it. Here in Australia, there was a report that came out across mass media, not just right-wing, but left-wing media as well, where we heard that in Victoria, or Melbourne, you might know the city, Victoria, that's the state south of Sydney, for those of you that are international, where they were told to deliberately reduce the incarceration or the jail sentences and the severity of the offences of people accused of child SA in order to make sure that those people wouldn't fall afoul of federal immigration rules and be deported. Now, whether you think that's an exaggeration or not, when people read that in the newspaper or see those sorts of news reports on the internet or on the news or whatever, you are going to have a whole heap of people that are going to be pissed off about that. And I think it's awfully dismissive of people on the left to sit there and suggest that everybody on the right that disagrees with that is some sort of right-wing, heartless.
Let me respond. Again, when the problem comes into play, what you're talking about left wing, the problem comes into play when we take an anecdote and throw that on top of every individual without
I'm
any
not throwing it on top of every
Let
individual.
me finish. When we take an anecdote and throw it on top of every individual. For example, when you want to talk about sanctuary cities and they're letting crime through and this and that and the other thing, they're not. They're really not. The crime rate for undocumented immigrants is lower than the actual crime rate for natural born citizens. It is a chat. This is what I'm talking about when you laugh.
Because it's rubbish. Because it's not true. That's why.
No, it is
because
true.
What you guys do is you grab statistics and you twist and turn it in ways that suit your narrative. It's absolute rubbish.
We were having a good conversation. Let me talk. Don't talk over me. I didn't talk over you. What I'm pointing out to you is a fact. You can look it up. Anybody watching this show can look it up. Undocumented immigrants have a lower crime rate than natural born American citizens. It's a fact.
I don't agree with you that that's a fact.
I don't care if you don't agree. You may not agree that this sheet of paper is orange, but it's orange. It doesn't matter if you don't agree. Facts don't matter who agrees or who doesn't. That's the problem. I don't care if you don't agree. It is.
You're referring to statistics.
No, I'm reading you a fact. If the number is 5 and the other number is 10, and I tell you 5 is lower than 10, oh, I don't agree that 5 is lower than 10. It doesn't matter. 5 is lower than 10. This is where the problem comes into play. And this is where you want to get into this.
The problem comes into play because I disagree with the interpretation of statistics.
Let me finish my point.
Okay.
Let me finish my point.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that you disagree when I'm giving you a fact. A fact is a fact.
You're not giving me a fact. You're giving me a statistic. No, let's be clear. Let's be clear. No. Let's just stick on this point. Let's stick on this point.
Now you let me talk.
Let's stick on this point because otherwise you're going to talk for another 10 minutes before you let me respond to that bit.
And then you talk. And stop all the, you talk for 10 minutes. You just talk for 10 minutes too. So again,
you don't want me to respond to this bit, so you're going to bring up a whole heap of other things before you let me respond to this.
Let me finish. We're having a good conversation. Let's finish this conversation good. Okay? So again, it is a fact that they have a lower crime rate. When you talk about sanctuary cities, nobody's allowing or sitting there saying, oh, well, we're going to hide criminals here because we're going to protect. So just like I'll take, I'll point out the fact that in these quote unquote sanctuary cities, a lot of individuals in those cities are undocumented. And in those undocumented cities or in those undocumented areas, everyone there is fearful of having somebody come and say, show me your papers. They may have a daughter or a son sitting in that next room. And what ends up happening is if they can't show their papers, they're gone and they can't protect their family anymore and their family's gone. So that is a fear that individuals have who are undocumented in here, in this actual area. Hence the reason they have a lower crime rate because they don't want to come across because
that's exactly the thing that you're promoting. You're saying that you want more of that. I'm saying we should have less of it.
My point. Thank you. Goodness gracious. So
I'm still here, but I'm going off camera for like 30 seconds again.
Okay. So when we're talking about the sanctuary cities and stuff, nobody is having some criminal harboring some criminal in there that's they're protecting. That's just not happening. The crime rate is lower, and we just have to accept it because it's a fact. It's based on data. It's actually documented. So we can't sit here and claim that it's different unless you got some proof that you're going to pull out that you've done some data research. But I doubt that's going to happen. In terms of human trafficking and drugs, yes, everybody's against those human trafficking and drugs coming across. Drugs come across mostly through points of entry and not just somebody carrying it across the border. That is very rare that someone would carry drugs or stuff across the border, just walking across on a blank space that they think nobody's there. That just doesn't happen. The main thing is it comes through points of entry. Hence, we need better detection processes. We need better drug sniffing dogs and all this other technologies that are there to search out and find the drugs coming across these points of entry. Human trafficking, similar situation. They come across points of entry. And so we have to make sure that there's better detection there. So we agree all this stuff has to be done. Nobody was calling for open borders, and the borders weren't just open. They've always been the way that they are because we haven't done anything since Reagan.
So when we were trying to put stuff together, and when they tried to put stuff together to put across an immigration bill, that would have helped. That would have actually helped with the quote unquote open borders, which the borders have always been the borders. That's just the way they are because people kicked the can down the road. Every administration does. Trump's not going to do anything but claim this mass deportation, and he may start doing that, and that'll be bad. It doesn't fix the border situation. People are still can walk straight through the same way. So the whole point being, we need legislation there. We need more money there. We need lawyers, judges, all these things. And it's not a matter of fast tracking visas or stuff like that. No, it's actually about dealing with people who are here. You have tons of people who have, yes, already crossed mass deportation. If the number is 11 million, there's no way logistically to do it.
Clinton did it.
Anything to do it. So
Clinton did it.
Where are the points? No, we don't. There's no possible way to do it.
Oh, well, hang on. Let me just come in. Let me just come in on a couple of points. I'll let you continue, but let me just come in on the few points you brought up so far. Firstly, I agree with you. Again, I agree with you. We're on the same page. You need to have more judges and agents or whatever officials that can address and deal with these applications. I absolutely agree with you. I think there is a major point of difference between us on the issue of what should be done about the people that are already here. Okay. I think that they should be deported, and I think they should be deported. Please let me finish. I think they should be deported, even if it comes at a cost. Even if it comes at a cost. Okay, I think that they should be deported.
I understand that. I wrote it all down.
Okay.
I understand your position.
On your claim that people that are there illegally, not migrants in general, but people that are there illegally or undocumented, whatever term you want to use, have a lower crime rate. I don't agree that that's what the facts actually are. What I think has happened is that
them wrong, Shaq.
What
we're
I
not
think
going to go on this nitpicking piece unless you're going to bring up data. Unless you want me to bring up
listen? You have done this to me show after show after show. I don't
want to go down right now. So again, let's get back to where I was, because going back to the services and everything else, since we agree there, I'll move on past that. So in terms of the skill-based labor, when we put together the situation again with the Langford bill, which was actually there for that, again, mass deportation is not going to work. But yes, what we can do is go inside and actually get these individuals, get them working, get the processes started for these individuals, as well as those individuals that are still waiting in line. We definitely have to work on a fair-based system, but right now the fair-based system is going to have to be a slow process to get through, because until we get these lawyers, until we get the judges, until we get the actual technologies in place, we're still always going to have the thousands and thousands of people, due to the fact of, one, humans are nomadic in the first place. Also, global warming is a problem. So therefore, you're going to have a lot of people moving due to the heat and actually trying to get to cooler weather. You have problem. You can laugh all you want to, but that's actually a fact. It's actually been proven.
This is more of a fact.
Immigration deals with actually the heat and
you can't just fix immigration. They're going to bring up other unrelated things that I'm going to oppose.
You're going to overtalk me now because I'm trying to make a point and trying to finish out to give you some time to talk. But no, you want to overtalk me because you don't want to listen, and you laugh off like nobody, like you're the only one who has any solutions. So you haven't brought up any solutions. So again, all these things that we have to deal with, that's going to always be there. People are always going to be at the line to cross. People are always going to sneak in. But the thing is, mass deportation isn't going to be a solution. It's going to be a problem. The big thing is, you can take the same amount of money that you're pushing for this mass deportation and actually put that to the litigation side and actually focus on, okay, now let's go ahead. We see this a 5-year backlog of individuals. Let's go ahead and start processing these 5-year backlog of individuals so they don't decide, hey, we're going to take a chance. Let's not focus on family separation, because family separation doesn't do anything. It actually harms more so than it does anything. Let's work on the visas that have overstayed, because you already have the dreamers that have never been in these countries of origin, that have been here their whole lives, but yet you want to send an individual who only speaks English.
you get to go back to Venezuela because that's where your original parents are from. That doesn't work. That's part of this mass deportation process that he's talking about. But that doesn't help. That creates a problem. That creates that makes the U.S. human traffickers. So what we need to do is take that same amount of money, push that towards that litigation, the legal side of things, push that to, okay, now we got to install some better security measures at the ports of entry, even at the harbors themselves, because if you put up a wall, people can still go under, people can still go around. So you're still going to have to need people at harbors and stuff like that taken care of. So we need these ports of entries locked down a lot better than what they are now. That could cut down on the fentanyl, all the drug trades. That's where the drugs actually come through. Human trafficking also comes through a lot of ports of entry, but either way, we can fix that through these Border Patrol agents and all the security measures taking place. But mass deportation, the amount of money, the amount of problems that's going to create is not the answer. It hurts more than it helps. And again, if we agree that, okay, well, we need we need a fair-based system. We agree. I completely agree. Arguing over that does nothing. Skill-based helps. That's also part of immigration. And it's been part of our immigration system for a little bit, but that's where the visa system is there. And all that stuff is there. We can work and actually expand on that and solidify that. We agree. So all this stuff we agree on, our big disagreement is on mass deportation, and you haven't shown me any data where mass deportation helps. I can tell you when we did the Japanese internment camps, that's mass deportation. That doesn't help at all. It just doesn't. Because, again, we don't have the personnel, don't have the facilities, we have nothing to do it with.
Just for the audience that's still watching, I didn't realize until I saw myself there, I'm not deliberately looking over here off camera because I don't want to look down here. Except I'm actually short-sighted. I'm not wearing my glasses. It is the middle of the morning for me, and I have a 90-inch television which I can see everybody on. So that's the reason why you often see me looking off camera. It's not because I'm trying to be rude. Jacoby, I don't know whether you're trying to enter into conversations with me in the hope that you can turn them into debates and win those debates. I don't know what your motivation is for the way that you're interacting. But what it appears to me that you're doing, and maybe it's accidental, is you're bringing up points that I clearly am not going to agree with, such as climate change. You then don't let me respond to that, and then you go on with quite a long description of things that we agree on and points that I've already conceded. And I don't really understand that. Okay? Again, in all the issues, a lot of the issues you just brought up with family separation, all the rest of it, yeah, of course. I even gave you a really heartfelt personal story about why I can see how horrible that would be. But I'm equally trying to point out some of the issues. Now, I'm going to leave climate change aside because that's a whole different debate, and I don't buy into that argument at all. But let's not sidetrack onto that issue. I want to come back to the thing about the crime rates. You keep trying to say, and I hear this from other people, not just yourself, that the crime rates for immigrants in general are lower than the population, whether they are illegal or legally admitted immigrants. The crime rates are lower. That is absolutely correct for legal immigrants. It is not correct, actually, for their children. What you find is that their children the children of legal immigrants, that their children, if they are born in that country, have about the same crime rates as the native population. And within 2 generations, they have about the same crime rates. Where they don't, it's generally based on certain ethnicities. And interestingly, the children of immigrants that come from poorer countries are less likely to commit crimes than the children of immigrants who come from wealthier countries. So a British person that moves to the United States, immigrates to the United States, and then has children born in the US, their children are likely to have, per capita, about the same crime rate as American-born children, right? But a child born in America from parents that came from a third world country, they have lower rates. Now, why is that? I don't know, right? But if you were going to base immigration policy on that theory, what you would do is you would say, we don't want any immigrants from wealthy Western countries. We only want immigrants coming from poorer countries. The statistics might show that, but in reality, people are going to say that doesn't sound right, okay? So when you talk about illegal or undocumented immigrants, whatever term is in vogue at the moment in America, when you're talking about that group having a lower crime rate, in the first place, I don't agree with that because I think the statistics have been manipulated. But even if I did agree with it, if the reason being given for why their crime rate is lower is because they're petrified that the consequences are that they and potentially their family is going to be thrown out of the country, that gets to the very heart of the problem. Why would you want to exacerbate that problem? People, if we believe, as I do, and as I think you do, if we want to see our countries, our Western countries, have more open and available immigration policies so that people from all over the world can come to our countries and build a better life for themselves and for their families, if that's what we want to have, we shouldn't be suggesting that, hey, look how great it is that the people that aren't legally admitted have a lower crime rate because they're terrified that they're going to get in trouble. That's not great. We shouldn't be making the argument, well, look how fantastic it is that these people who are undocumented are able to work for lower wages and so therefore can work for farms, which reduces the cost of food, which reduces the cost of all these other things. That's not an argument for immigration. That's an argument for illegal immigration. The argument for immigration is that we can boost the economy and people will earn more money as a result and can pay more money for food to be produced properly, for goods to be manufactured properly, at proper wages, okay? But the argument, when you look at how it's being argued, the left argues as if, one, the right is heartless by not wanting any immigration, the left wants legal immigration, and the arguments for why they should have legal immigration is because how fantastic illegal immigration is. That is what I object to so much. That too, and that's what I think a lot of people on the right are objecting so much to. Also, I just want to pivot slightly, if I may, into an economics issue, okay? When it comes to the cost of production, the cost of producing goods, manufacturing, farming, etc., okay, there have been a lot of economists on the left and on the right that have talked about the issues that unions cause when they advocate for higher wages. One of those issues where I staunchly disagree with the free market philosophies of my favorite economists such as Thomas Sowell and Milton Friedman and Ludwig von Mises and people like that, Murray Rothbard, etc., where I sharply disagree with them is the idea that we should allow people to import goods from countries whose labor force don't have the same working conditions, not wages, but working conditions that we demand for our workers locally. Because what it does is it puts our companies and our businesses at a disadvantage. Okay? Now, you've mentioned about Donald Trump's tariffs and things like that. Look, that is something that unions have often asked for in the past, is protective tariffs. Now, I don't want to get into an economic argument here. I just want to say that if the argument for immigration is the benefit that the country, whether the United States or my own countries, but we'll talk about yours for a moment, if the argument for having undocumented people come into the country is that they can provide labor at a lower cost than what lawfully admitted migrants or people that are already born there would provide that labor for. What you are doing is you are allowing some companies to get a financial benefit at the expense of other companies that are actually abiding by the laws. Hence the reason why I keep saying you are allowing people that took the chance to get a benefit over the people that tried to do it the right way when they wanted to immigrate to the country. You're allowing businesses that run the risk of employing people they're not supposed to employ to get a financial benefit at the expense of all the companies that are trying to do things the right way. That is why I think that what's happening is so objectionable. But let me put a proposition to you. If you want to respond to that, fine. I would like to put a proposition to you, but if you want to respond to that, please do so.
Well, I was gonna. You brought up basically three different things, but I mean, you can put up the proposition, and I'll answer. I'll do it all as one, or did you want me to do?
I don't want to do to you what I'm complaining that you do to me. So if you want to respond now, then I'll put a proposition to you at the end.
All right. I just wanted to point out the children of immigrants. I don't know where that stat you got came from. All statistics I see is that undocumented workers have half the crime rate as your natural born citizens. And they actually have a less crime rate than documented immigrants. So undocumented workers, again, they have a low crime rate.
That's what I said, Davey.
No, you said that then it changes to children of they roughly have the same amount of crime rate. You went down.
No. Look, I might have said that sloppily, or perhaps you misheard. Let me just clarify that very quickly. Undocumented immigrants and their children have lower crime rates than the general population. They also have lower crime rates than, how would you describe it, lawfully admitted immigrants, right?
Yeah.
Lawfully admitted immigrants have a lower crime rate, and their children have a lower crime rate than the people that already live there, right? But when you break down the immigrant groups, American immigrants to Australia, so American-born people who are lawfully admitted to Australia, whose children are born in Australia, they have about the same crime rate as Australian kids that are born in Australia. Whereas the children of immigrants that come from, say, a developing country, let's say Thailand, for example, we have a lot of Thai immigrants that come to Australia. The Thai immigrants that come to Australia whose children are born here. So you've got an American, you've got a 25-year-old American couple and a 25-year-old Thai couple. They both moved to Australia and they both have 3 children. Both of these couples have 3 children. The American children are more likely to have the same sort of crime rate as the existing Australian population than the Thai children are, right? So all I was pointing out, I was actually on your side on that argument, that immigrants from developing countries for the first couple of generations, lawfully admitted for the first couple of generations, actually do have a lower crime rate, right? But that's not something to base immigration policy on, because if it was, then what the United States should do is the United States should be more accommodating of immigrants from poorer countries and should tell Brits and Canadians and Australians that you've got to go to the back of the queue. Clearly that wouldn't happen. Australia's not going to sit there and say, hey, New Zealand and Canada and the US and the UK, we don't want you. We want people from Ethiopia. Like, that's not going to happen.
I mean,
although the crime rates would show that.
I don't think we should base immigration policy on that. Either way, the problem.
But that's what I'm pointing out is that that's not really an argument in defense of the point you were making.
But my point that I'm making is that it's being used in the opposite direction. It's being told that these undocumented workers are criminals, that they're bringing drugs, they're bringing all this disease, they're doing all this stuff. But that's where my argument is that we agree immigration policy should not be built on the idea that these individuals are criminals or not criminals. But right now,
the individuals are being demonized and said that they are criminals. They are so bad. They're breaking the law. They're drug dealers. They're all this other stuff. That's a problem, and that's where my point is. We can.
Yeah, okay, but
So-
I don't think you and I are disagreeing on that point. But
Yeah.
but Jacoby, I don't find that a compelling point to bring up in relation to immigration. Let me put a proposition to you though. Oh, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say the reason it is a compelling discussion piece in the immigration discussion is the fact that there is a demonization of the undocumented worker as if they are this evil individual. But all to the contrary, the facts prove that it's not. They aren't these individuals that are so evil.
There's I think, a demonization of the idea that sanctuary cities may not hide people, as you rephrased my comment, but may protect in some way those individuals rather than handing them over to immigration authorities and have those people deported. And that will cause that'll cause two major things. It will cause amongst the domestic population, including the immigrant community, a feeling of, we've had to jump through all these hoops for immigrants, and these people come in and commit crimes and nothing happens to them, they should be sent back. It creates disharmony amongst the local population where they say, who the hell are these foreigners coming over here breaking our rules? They should be told you committed serious offences, you should go. And it actually creates disharmony amongst your peer group, because when an American comes to Australia and gets told, hey, you got a DUI because you were a bit pissed one time and you drove over the limit when you were 20 and you're now 50 and you're going to have to go through a bit of a process in order to be admitted, and then looks at while he's sitting at the airport waiting for immigration to like deal with his case, reads the paper and goes, but some illegal immigrant came in and SA'd a child and they're allowed to stay, and you're worried about my drink driving offense from 30 years ago, you're going to see people go, what the hell is going on? And again, that's natural human nature. Of course, people are going to be pissed off.
Again, that part we agree. We completely agree that causes disharmony and all this other stuff. But this is why I bring that comment up.
So the solution is, even at the risk of family separation, if somebody commits an offense, let's start with them and get rid of them.
No, let me finish. So when you're talking about these protecting or hiding or whatever term you want to use for it, that's not happening because of that disharmony. And the problem comes into play because, again, when you demonize a whole group of individuals saying undocumented immigrants, sanctuary cities are harbors of crime infestation, why should that person in there trust the police at all when you're already telling
whoa, hold up, pull back. No, don't change the goalposts. We're not talking about victims. No, because you're skewing it into something else.
Let me finish. When you're already saying that this neighborhood over here is nasty, horrible, and anything.
Well, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Saying you. Stop taking it personal. I'm not saying you. When we have, and this is why I bring up the argument about undocumented workers having a lower crime rate, because it's been used against them for a while. They've been demonized for a while. They've been said that they're bringing drugs. That came from the campaign. So let's not act like it didn't. So when we say these things, and that group of individuals,
because it's been talked about for the last 20 or 30 years. I'm 40 years old. These were conversations that were happening in the US and Australia when I was a child.
You can hear what I'm saying. Let me finish real quick. So that's why I'm saying that it's a relevant thing that if we could stop demonizing these individuals, if they aren't so ostracized and felt as if they're bad in the first place, and if they say anything that they themselves would be harmed because they'd have no protections or anything, how can we bring that group of those sanctuary cities that actually bring forth those same criminals that we're talking about. Because if you're saying that, and that's what I'm saying, the whole demonization part, when we're talking about lower crime rate, we have to change how we're talking about that. We cannot demonize these undocumented workers to a point where they feel unsafe to even.
I think you've made your point. We are limited on time now, so let me just cover a couple of things. So, firstly,
get to your better wages thing too.
Sorry.
Oh, I wanted to get to your better wages thing because that's something that we agree on.
Okay, well, let me just respond to these couple of bits. So, first of all, I'm not talking about demonizing everybody, but as I already said and we've agreed on, there needs to be a pathway for people to be lawfully admitted, and we do need to address how people should be treated when they're already in the country. But I think there has to be a balancing act between just fast-tracking visas for them and the argument of, okay, well, let's just fast-track everybody else's and admit everybody. I don't think that works. I think that there may need to be some level of deportation, even if it's temporary deportation to a third-party country, right? And the primary reason for that is to disincentivize this type of behavior, which is also actually something that Joe Biden talked about. But he talked about it so late in the game that it sort of didn't look like a real thing that he wanted. He should have done that in the first place. But the idea about the criminals and people being too scared, I think where you were going with that, and I may be wrong that this wasn't what you were doing, but I think what you're going with is the idea that somebody who is undocumented may be reluctant to report a crime that has occurred against them because by doing so, they subject themselves to the possibility that they could then be deported themselves. And that is, again, a serious problem. And again, the reason why I say that having a large population of people that are not documented properly is harmful to society and harmful to them, which is why we need to make sure that that's not the process that we're allowing to have. And that might mean that we need to start deporting some people, even if it separates families. And we have to start somewhere. So I will concede the point that the idea that you are going to get the military in, right? And I don't think they're going to march down the streets and knock on everyone's door and ask for their passports, as I think the left tries to describe it, in a sort of right-wing Gestapo way. I don't think that's really what the right has in mind. But the idea that you're going to deport 10 million or 20 million, whatever number you want to come up with, I get it. That does sound horrific. But maybe that would have the effect of preventing 50 million people from coming in. I don't know. There's no way to measure that. But at very least, we have to start somewhere. And surely a place to start is those, what is it, MS-13? Is that the gang over there? Like, I don't know the names of all the gangs. The big violent gangs that are there that are clearly gang members and tattooed up, the drug runners, the people that commit, violent assaults, etc. Those people, surely, if they commit those sorts of crimes, deport them. And if that means that they're going to be separated from the rest of the family members they have in the country, well, so be it. Start somewhere. There have to be some people where you've got to be a bit tough. There's got to be some people, because for as long as you aren't, the people that would never dream of committing those sorts of offences are sitting back there going, why can't we get in? Why is it that guy who's some drug dealer who goes around bashing people and asking for protection money from businesses or taking over apartment buildings in Aurora in Colorado, they have children and their children get to stay, and I'm sitting here poor in my country, come from the same country as them, and my parents are just trying to do things the right way, and we can't get in, right? And I can tell you who I would prefer. Now, the children of that criminal, they're innocent children. I don't want to see something horrible happen to them. Of course not. But these other kids are also equally entitled, or should be equally entitled, to be able to have that opportunity as well. And just lastly, the producers of the show have seen fit to put progressive versus libertarian. You know what? I think I'm pretty progressive in a lot of my viewpoints. I believe in healthcare, education funding. I believe in immigration. I believe that abortion should be a woman's choice. I think the real difference between you and I, Jacoby, is establishment versus anti-establishment. I'm anti-establishment. You seem, in my view, and I'm happy. Please respond to this. I think that you put way too much faith in government processes. I don't. I don't trust government. I don't like government. I don't like politicians. Even the politicians are on my side. I don't like them. They create these bullshit rules. They create these regulations that nobody can comply with. They pass legislation that people en masse oppose, and they pass it anyway. Okay, and what I think we should have is less of them. So when it comes to immigration, if you want to join my side and agree that government is the problem in almost every circumstance, and therefore, let me finish my proposal to you, Jacoby. Let me finish my proposal, right? Maybe you'll win me over, and if you can't, you have every opportunity to persuade me to join your side. If you will agree to significantly reduce the size of government, make it merely an administrative body. Mark, come back. We're addressing this to you as well. If you will agree to significantly reduce the size of government, make it nothing more than an administrative body, okay, significantly reduce taxes so people like me who earn decent money through our own hard work and sweat and tears, or not sweat and tears, but late nights on computers, whatever you want to say, get to keep more of our revenue, and we don't have to subsidize the lifestyle of those people that can't be bothered, not the disabled, not the people that have other issues, but the people that can't be bothered to make proper financial decisions for themselves. If you're prepared to come to my side, then I'm prepared to say, let's have open immigration. Open the borders like all of our countries did after World War I and World War II. Let's have mass immigration. Let these people come in and create their businesses and build their homes and try to make a go of it. Okay? But you can't have both. You can't have unlimited immigration and then expect me to pay for it as well.
Okay, here's the funny part. When this always comes up, because this is always that interesting thing, how you say, well, you trust government and I don't. Well, it's not that you don't trust government. You just want government to do what you want it to do. Because, for example,
no, I want it to fuck off. That's what I want government to do.
Let me finish. You say you want to slash government. This immigration thing that you're talking about would be a massive increase of government. What I put my faith in is actually people. I'm not talking about, we need more government individuals to come out there and hunt people down for papers, and we need more government.
Okay, that's a poor argument. Let's come back to government in general.
Let me finish.
I get your point, but let's come back to government in general.
You put this proposal out.
Okay, but you're going down that path. Let's come back to government in general.
You won't let me answer. Let me finish my answer. So now you put up this proposal of less government, slashing government. However, you don't realize in your proposal you're asking for more government. Everything that you've asked for is more government. You want people to intrude on individuals, not only because your side does, want to figure out who somebody can marry. You want your side to...
That's not me. That's not my side at all. That's not my side at all.
Okay. But you want your government to increase its size so it could actually mass deport over 11 some odd million people.
Leave that bit aside. Okay. No, because that's the argument. So leave that bit aside. Because what I said, no, leave that bit aside. Because what I said was, I'm all for open immigration if my taxes are reduced and regulations are reduced. Okay, so just come back to the other things with government. Leave immigration aside. Let's deal with the other things of government. So you said, I want government to become bigger to tell people who they should or shouldn't be able to marry, right? Now, incorrectly, they've put down at the bottom here progressive versus libertarians. It should be establishment versus anti-establishment. That's what should really be written at the bottom. Okay, so
But you
as
want
an
to
anti,
establish these extra
so,
things.
so as an anti-establishment person or as a libertarian, I don't want government dictating who people should or should not be able to marry outside of some very narrow restrictions.
You
No, I
just
don't.
legitimately you cannot say that. You can't say that. I don't want the government to dictate who they marry outside of this right here. That's wanting. What's this? You want them to dictate that?
I don't think that a 50-year-old guy should be able to marry a 9-year-old girl, right?
We're talking
outside of
we're not talking about.
so outside of narrow restrictions to do with consent and age and things like that, I think that people should be able to marry whomever they like.
So you believe
What you're trying to come at me with?
What about
What you're trying to come? Hang on a second.
Let me ask you another.
What you're trying to come at with
I
me
gotta
is
figure
gay
out
marriage.
how
That's what you're
to
trying to come at me with, right?
I'm trying to learn about your side. Okay, I'm trying to learn about your side. What about
Yep.
what about genders?
What about genders?
Is it okay for a transgender man to go in a man's bathroom? What about a transgender woman to go into a woman's bathroom? Is that okay?
Well, it's a completely separate issue to marriage.
It's about freedom.
Again, that's a completely separate issue from marriage.
So you're saying that transgender individuals.
Let me answer you. Let me answer you. In relation to marriage, I think that people should be able to marry whomever they want, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, or gender expression, whatever. Right? That's been my position. I've argued, or I'll rephrase that. I've debated that with people who are on the right, like Dan, right, when he was still welcome onto this network by our founders before they lost their mind with derangement syndrome. I debated that with him, right? He doesn't agree. I do. I think that they should be able to get married or have something similar to a marriage, it's the equivalent of a marriage relationship enshrined in the law. I believe that they should be able to do it. Now, do transgender people, or should we allow transgender people to be able to use bathrooms that are of the gender that they identified with? This is a question that I think has a very complicated answer, which I don't think that anybody can say they're right or wrong on. The role of government in this conversation, though, the role of government should be to be an independent umpire, not to dictate this. Okay? We're working on this right now. We're working on it because this is something that's in flux right now. Society is trying to work it out. Should what's her name? Lara Thomas. What's that? The swimmer. What's his name? What's her name? Leah Thomas. Should Leah Thomas be able to compete in the girls' team, or should Leah Thomas be banned? Should those athletes at the Olympics in the wrestling, should they be able to compete? I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that. Should they be able to compete or should they not? At the moment, whatever government does is making a decision. I don't know is the answer. It's something that society needs to work on. Now, my knee-jerk reaction is I oppose it. Absolutely. I oppose it. The question is, do I want government to oppose it on my behalf?
That's the question, Shaq. You're going around it. Just answer the question, man.
But the answer is I don't. Hang on, whoa. But the answer is I don't know, Jacoby. I don't know because I'm pragmatic enough to say my automatic response is yes. I would want to oppose that. Yes, that's my automatic response. And so hang on, no. Let me finish, please. Let me finish. My automatic response is I oppose it, and so therefore I want government to oppose it. But my real answer is I oppose it. However, before government does anything on my behalf, because I only want government to be an independent umpire, I think we need to be more pragmatic and look at all of the issues and then try to work out a solution. So my answer is I don't know. And because I don't know, and neither do you,
Yeah, I do.
government needs to stay out of this until we can work it out as a society.
I mean, I can give you an easy answer. Government shouldn't determine whether they go to the bathroom, but you can't give me that answer. So I'm
bullshit. No, bullshit. Jatomi, you know what? Let's not bullshit each other. I'm wearing a pink shirt right now. Okay, if I go into the swimming pools in Durham or wherever it is you live in North Carolina, if I go in there in my pink shirt and I'm a bit overweight and I go, look, I've got man boobs, but they're not man boobs, they're girl boobs because I now identify as a woman. And I go in there with, and I don't know what relatives you have, but I go in there with your daughter or your sister or your auntie or your mother or your cousin, and I say, hey, I want to get changed and flop my bits about in the girls' bathroom. I think you're going to have a problem with that.
I don't want you to put that out there. You're actually a good guy, but what you're saying right there was actually not really good. But I'm going to save you because that's why I'm trying to talk over top of you. You're a good dude, and I don't want you to go down that route.
But that's the argument that's been made, mate.
That argument itself is a very offensive argument to many because you're actually making light of what individuals go through. So I'm trying to stop you from going down that argumentative path because it's not actually a good argument.
I know they go through it. Look, Jatomi, no. I know they go through it.
That is not a good argument.
Stop. I know that people in the trans community go through that, but so too do the parents of young girls go through the fear that their young girls are going to be exposed to something. No, let me finish. It's okay. I'll wear the heat. It's fine. Okay. So too do the parents of young girls who feel as though there is a biological male who is getting changed in a female space. This is not really a debate because this is exactly what the argument is right now. This is the argument that's in Congress right now because the US Congress has the first transgender congressperson that's been elected, right? Is she from Massachusetts? McBride, I think, is the name.
The one
Delaware.
That wasn't a doctor.
Delaware.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a cabinet member that you said that wasn't a doctor that shouldn't be there.
Say that again, Jatomi?
Earlier in the discussion that we had 2 hours ago, you had besmirched the individual who was put in a cabinet position that is actually a transgender individual, and you had said that she didn't deserve to be there, even though she was a doctor and had the qualification to be there. You besmirched her.
No. I didn't say that. You spun what I said into that when I was talking about. No. But that was about Rachel Levine. That's not to do with McBride. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what McBride's first name is. But McBride from what did you say, Delaware, right? Delaware. This is an issue that they're currently arguing about, and Nancy Mace, I think, is the one saying, well, we want to propose a rule that says that McBride and other transgender people can only use the bathrooms of their biological sex. So for you to say, well, you're saving me, no, I am not. I am not taking the. No. Hold up a second. I am not taking a position on this. I'm saying it's complicated and we need to work it out. Your question to me was, what should government's role be in this? I'm saying to you, I don't know. Last time I was in New York, right, I went to these bathrooms, and the bathrooms had like a male, like a half male with like trousers, and then like a half female with like a skirt thing, and it just said all genders, right? And I was with like people, Americans, and they were like, hey, whatever, all genders. I didn't really care. I went to a similar bathroom that was set up the same way, where the taps were on top of the toilet system, so you could wash your hands to save water and everything. And it was the same thing right here in Sydney, but it didn't say all genders are that simple. It was just like bathroom, right, for everybody. So, like, I don't have any opposition to that sort of thing. But what I find is happening, what I feel is happening on this issue, is that people on the left are demanding that government require people to not have a problem or to not have any concern about trans, and it's generally males. Let's be honest about this. It's generally male to female trans that people are objecting to. We have heard no media coverage that I have seen of any major thing where female to male trans people have the parents going, hey, I don't want this biological female in the boys' changing room. Nobody says that, right? But we do it for male to female transgenders. Your original question was, what do I think government's role in that should be? I don't know. That's not me avoiding the question. I don't know.
And then you
But I don't think that you do either.
Again, that's where you're wrong. I do know. I don't think the government should worry about where somebody's going to the bathroom. I don't think that they should worry about if a transgender woman goes inside of a woman's bathroom. All right. It's what she can do. That should not be up to the government to decide what bathroom this gendered individual goes to. That's my point.
But you don't believe that because you oppose.
No, let me finish. And you're talking about the one individual from Delaware out of 500 plus individuals that are going to be in Congress. Nancy Mace, a Republican who's bringing up this whole gender thing. The reason she's bringing that up is because it's a hot topic and it gets her votes. That's why. The reason you don't hear about, oh, well, we got to worry about transgender men. The reason you don't hear about that is because, no, you're going to play the sympathetic role and get on people's emotional side. Oh, we must protect the women. And they're so flimsy. We're going to help them out. So these old big bad men, that's the whole manipulation.
Okay. No. I've got to come back at you now. No. Before you say anything else, I've got to come back at you now.
Let me finish my words. That's why.
Don't go on for 10 minutes. I want to come back at you specifically on just that.
This is why you even said you don't hear any problems or anything about any complaints about the transgender men going into men's bathrooms. It's because of that reason. It's easy to play on your and even in your argument here. Oh, well, we shouldn't have men and women's sports. Well, you don't. You don't have men. You have transgender women in women's sports, and there's nothing wrong with that. On top of that, you don't even have a ton of transgender women in sports. You don't even have that many transgender.
Okay, look, let me just come back. I'm going to come back to your previous point.
As you
let me just say this here. No, come on. I want to say something to the point you made before. Okay, let me just come back at you on a couple of points. So, firstly, you say that, oh, well, you agree that government shouldn't have any role in that. That's not true because what your side, the establishment side, not progressive libertarian, establishment versus anti-establishment, what your side wants to do is your side wants to force what your side. Come on. Let me speak now. Let me speak now. What your side wants.
I am saying I don't want government in the bathroom. So
I heard you. I heard you the first time.
You do.
Here's the first time. Let me respond to
it. In the bathroom.
What your side wants to do is your side wants to enforce that people.
Stop. No, again, take those words out. I don't want enforcement. I don't want all this other stuff. I said I don't want government involved in the bathrooms. That's no enforcement. That's not saying, hey, I want you to do this.
Okay. You've now repeated that multiple times. Can I finish, please?
Something. You want to enforce.
You've now cut me off to repeat that 3 or 4 times. Can you please let me finish?
Okay, finish.
What your side wants to do, in my opinion, all right? Clearly, it's an opinion you don't agree with. Let me justify my opinion that you don't agree with. What your side wants to do is to enforce that people should be able to use whatever bathroom they want to use, and that the opposition from people using those bathrooms is not going to be allowed, which is why we hear media reports of parents getting very upset that they don't want their daughters to get changed in these same bathrooms, or they want those people to be restricted, and government then stepping in and saying, well, A trans woman is a woman. A trans girl is a girl. So therefore, your opposition to this is discriminatory, and because it's discriminatory, you're not allowed to do that. Okay, that is your side of politics,
No, it's not.
mine.
No, it's
That is
not. You just
absolutely your
made
side of
up the
politics
mess.
and not mine.
Again, Shaq, I legitimately said and interrupted you multiple times. I don't want government in the bathroom. You
Yes, you
said
do. You
want-
definitely
Shaq,
do.
Listen,
You definitely
I do
do.
not want government in the
And
bathroom.
then you went
I
on
don't.
to say,
I don't want
and then you went on to
government.
say, one of the things
You
that I
said you
find,
want government
no, and
to
then
tell
you went
this
on to say,
transgender woman that they have to go over
Yeah.
here. That's what you said.
yeah.
I don't
Then
want
you
government in
went
the
on to
bathroom.
say, then you
I'm
went
not
on to
doing
say,
what
one
you
of the
said.
things
You
to Toby,
do that.
one of the things that I love so much about your establishment side of politics, I love it so much, right? You then jump up and down and say to me, well, that's because when it comes to why there's no complaint about female to male trans people, there's only a complaint about male to female trans people. That's because you guys want to be, and I'm paraphrasing something, it's not quite how you expressed it, because you
Shaq,
want to
why
be
don't
the
you do male to female?
saviors of women, and women and girls, like they're at risk, and the boys aren't, and the masculine. Well, this comes from the very same people, the very same side of politics that talks to men about their toxic masculinity, that talks to
Enlighten the
men
class.
about how they are supposed to stand up for women, that talks
Enlighten
to
the class.
men about how they should stand up against toxic masculinity, that they should stand up and say something when they think that a woman's being harmed. And then when we do, you advocate that a male to female trans person should be able to go into those bathrooms, and if us straight men say something about it, we're the problem.
Shaq, please enlighten the class. You yourself said you don't hear anything about transgender men going into men's bathrooms, and
What?
You said that isn't anywhere. You said that. Now, can you please tell us? Because my explanation was the fact that they aren't using that as an easy way to manipulate individuals' vote.
To show their dominance over women was essentially what you were trying to
why
suggest.
they don't do that. Why don't they talk about transgender men going into men's bathrooms?
Female to
You
male
brought it up.
transgender men going to bathrooms. I don't know why they're not talking about it, but maybe it's because they don't think that young boys are at as much risk as what young girls are. Maybe that's the reason. I have no idea.
But it's funny. It's funny though, because we're so adamant that transgender women, and this is you, men going into women's sports, because transgender women to you are men, but you don't see transgender men as women. So wouldn't you want to protect that woman that you consider transgender woman? But no, you're not going to do that because your argument is bad.
Really. And I reckon if there were female to male transgender men that were being sexually assaulted or at higher risk of being sexually assaulted by heterosexual men, I think that you and I would be the first people that would jump up like that and say that that's wrong, right? So let's talk about the prisons. If people say that male to female transgender prisoners need to be held in separate facilities because they pose a heightened risk of harm to the female prisoners, and they are at heightened risk of harm if they put in with the male prisoners, so we need to do something. It is always going to be a fair enough argument when we try to protect male to female transgenders against the male population. Never an okay argument on your side when we make the argument that perhaps they pose a risk to biological females. So if I was to say to you that a female to male transgender person probably should not be incarcerated with biological males because they are at heightened risk of harm, right? Would you oppose that? No, be consistent, because that would be my position, that they're at heightened risk of harm. Is your position that a female to male transgender prisoners should be incarcerated with males. Is that your position? Because a trans man is a man. If a trans woman's a woman, that would be the position that would be consistent with your position, right?
That's still my consistent position.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't. I don't agree with that because I don't want to see people arbitrarily harmed because of issues to do with their gender or gender expression or sexuality. So perhaps what we've established is us anti-establishment lot or libertarian lot have a much greater heart and have much greater compassion than what you do.
You're trying to establish the bathroom police, so don't even try and say you're anti-establishment. I don't want any government in the bathrooms. You want government in the bathroom.
I don't want government in the bathrooms at all.
You didn't
Not at all.
We're going to get on that. It's been a nice long conversation and a fun conversation y'all were having back and forth and everything. But I've got to get ready to do the. Y'all can stick in here, but I've got to get ready to do the investment show. But y'all can stick around.
Well, I'm gonna make a proposition, Mark. That at some point, I'm going to make the proposition at some point this week, Toby and I have a one-on-one session that's actually planned, as opposed to one-on-one session after audience members that are friends of Kimberly have mouthed off at me. And I'm happy to sit down with you, Toby, for as many hours as you want to have whatever conversation you want to have. Happy to do it.
Hey, I'm up for any time, any chat now. I'm good. Anytime.
I mean, on air. I'm not talking about our off-air conversation.
I completely agree.
But when I get to North Carolina, we'll actually sit in the same room with a camera and have another TikTok conversation. All right, love you, bro.
All right, you guys have a great one, Shaq.
Take it easy.
Mark, you gonna hit the button again?
I gotta hit the button again. Hit the button.